about the women and the children. So that's how a kind of general mapping and a need analysis was undertaken by NCDC, the NPCCH team and WHO. And the overall objective was to kind of help the NPCCH officers and the medical professionals to create an awareness on how air pollution impacts and actions needed to kind of reduce health impacts of air pollution. So while we kind of developed this, the overarching principle, what we thought was to kind of keep it very, very simple, but at the same time, really effective for us to kind of understand that health workers which are at the front line, like for example, the ASHAs and the ANMs kind of do get that message, and also kind of let them kind of know on the health impacts. And therefore, we also try to do this modules in not only in English, but also in Hindi. And also if the states want to kind of translate them to their own vernacular languages, they're open to kind of do that. And with this, we kind of requested PHFI to help us design the content and the message for these modules, and certainly kind of they have put in a lot of efforts in this, and congratulations to the PHFI team that we are kind of finally seeing the outcome of the other two modules as well. And we kind of had a technical review from other stakeholders, which at time to time, including NCDC, WHO, and not also health professionals, has been kind of undertaken. And then let me kind of now at the end ended by kind of saying that these modules certainly are not a one-time effort or a one-time exercise. We will try to continuously update them to address the new concerns and the evidence which is kind of emerging every kind of and measures that will reduce the health impacts as and when they become, and there is a kind of critical mass for updation of these modules. So these updations would kind of happen, and we hope that using these modules, even for we also use these for non-health professionals, can be trained and to raise awareness on air pollution and its health impacts, and they're also able to understand the problem and how this problem is really affecting their own health, their own families, and their own loved ones. So I think that was the overall objective, and to just give you a brief. But let me now invite Ms. Surabhi, as I think Dr. Rameshwar has indicated, from Public Health Foundation in India, to kind of take us through the modules one by one. And over to you, Surabhi. Thank you.
I would request all the state nodal officers, district nodal officers, and all those who are participating here from the other departments, the traffic and all, to give their questions in the chatting. They can start one after another. Thank you. Over to Surabhi.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rameshwar, and thanks to everybody who's joining us from different parts of the country today, and to all come together for this important message on healthy air and healthy planet. I hope you can see my screen. And so essentially, we'll be walking through the traffic police workers, the traffic police personnel and municipal workers modules first. As you know, these two groups face particular risk from air pollution. The nature of their work in itself puts them at the front line as leaders in the community. Whichever action they take is important for reducing air pollution, reducing the effects of climate change. But unfortunately, the nature of their work also puts them at particular risk and makes them very vulnerable to the health impacts of air pollution. So we hope as trainers that you are joining us today, you will be able to conduct sessions with these two very important occupational health groups and spread the message on air pollution and the importance of taking measures to reduce their exposure to air pollution, and also be able to understand and show the direct link between air pollution and its impact on health. On the screen right now, you will see that there are two images. The one on the left is a flip chart, and the one on the right is a training manual. So for all the trainers who are attending today, you can go through the training manual to understand how you can use the document on the left, which is the flip chart, to conduct sessions at a community level or at an office level to explain the impacts, the health impacts of air pollution. These, as Dr. Rameshwar mentioned, are also available in Hindi. So first we'll start with English and then we'll move to the Hindi modules. So as you can see how this document is laid out, the flip chart has an infographic or an illustration, which will be the first page of the document. And at the back, we'll have the key messages for the trainers to discuss during their training. So for instance, you can show this to the participants and there'll be prompts given in the training manual that can help you to discuss the key messages. So for instance, here, the key messages to drive home are the sheer scale, as you can see, when it comes to the impact of air pollution in India. In 2017 alone, if we talk about statistics, 1.24 million deaths were due to air pollution. And out of this, we saw that 51.4% were in people younger than 70 years of age. So that just shows the kind of scale that exists of air pollution across the country. On the left, you can use these kind of pointers to explain air pollution. How do you define air pollution? The importance of clean air as a human right, the benefits of clean air, that's obviously to do a lot with healthier lungs, better neurocognitive status, but there are also threats linked to polluted air. We've seen an increase in medical costs, negative socioeconomic impact, and it also affects workers' productivity when it comes to polluted air. There are two types which we will be discussing in the next few slides, and mainly we've all seen, and there's been a lot of communication from WHO, which highlights how this has become the biggest invisible killer. It's the biggest environmental threat faced by the entire population, and it particularly puts certain groups at particular risk, and as they are vulnerable to the risks of air pollution. This is an excerpt from the training manual. As you can see, there is a guide provided for flip chart contents. You can read through the introduction. For instance, when you're starting the session, you can replace this with the information of your designation, place of work, or wherever you conducted the session. And you can read this out as an introduction of the trainer to the participants. On the right, you can see an example of some of the tips that are provided for facilitators. How can they conduct a session? What are the kind of rules that they can follow? And also the kind of learning objectives that are there when it comes to these sessions. So for instance, raising awareness of the participants about the importance of clean air, connection between air pollution and health effects, increasing the understanding of how air pollution affects the body. And these effects are not temporary, and they can actually lead to serious diseases later in life, as was discussed by all of these team panelists before. It's also important to focus on why this particular group is vulnerable to this kind of effect of air pollution, and what are the measures they can take to protect themselves and reduce their also the contribution to air pollution. So this kind of guide is provided in the training manual to facilitate your sessions, which you can go through. Yeah, I hope you can see the next slide. So in this manner, we move on to different kind of topics that will be covered. So for instance, this portion looks particularly at air pollutants and explains, the kind of size of air particles that we are talking about. So in the next slide, as was discussed, there are certain points that you can use to explain these concepts. So for example, you can define air pollutants, particulate matter, which is small solid or liquid matter in the Earth's atmosphere, and the different size, as you can see. When we talk about PM10, that's usually 10 micrometers or less, PM 2.5, which is 2.5 micrometers or less. The important message to drive home for the participants is, if you look at that small strand of human hair, it's actually about 100 micrometers. So about 40 fine particles could be placed on its width when it comes to PM 2.5. So when inhaled, these particles are actually so narrow that they can enter your bloodstream, they can enter your lungs, and can cause severe health effects, which will be discussed in the upcoming portion. Moving on, as we know, we discussed briefly, air pollution can be divided into two broad categories. This might be the work site for a lot of participants that you will be conducting the session with. So there are various threats, from trash burning, agriculture practices, crop burning, fuel use in factories, vehicular emission, building materials, construction, power plant emissions. All of these are sources of pollution in the outdoor air pollution or ambient air pollution that all of these personnel are facing at their workplace. So this kind of enlists the second page right at the back of this infographic also tells you some of the statistics that you can share. So for example, this particular type of air pollution can cause 4.2 million premature deaths worldwide. Also, if we move on to the next part, it explains indoor air pollution. So it's not only the workplace, but it's also indoor air pollution at our homes, air pollution inside the offices. So it's not particularly only on the roads or in the outdoor settings, but also air pollution can impact our health in close environments as well. So here, this illustration shows what are the various sources that exist within households, or as you can see, lack of proper ventilation, burning unclean cooking fuels, building materials as well, tobacco smoking, use of household cleaning products, storage of pesticides, etc., airborne particles that come from organic materials, humidifiers, etc. And we can also see the various infectious agents that exist within the household, contributing to poor air quality indoors. So what's a very important tool and a key message to be shared with the participants is about air quality index. Now, this plays a very important role as a tool to explain the quality of air. And as you can see, you can use this chart to link these values. Usually we see, especially during peak pollution season, we'll see a lot of these statistics around what the AQI level is. Is it 101, 200, 201, 301? But what is the message that we need to keep in mind behind these numbers? So while you conduct this session, it's very important that you can, for an example, wherever you're conducting the session, you can log on to the website that's given for the Central Pollution Control Board. They also have an app, and you can get the accurate reading for the day. And that AQI reading can be shared with the participants. And for example, that can be used to explain what their quality is for that day. So when we talk about the health effects, you can see if it's in a good category or a satisfactory category, it's low risk. And in the satisfactory category, it may cause minor breathing discomfort, etc. And also the health effects vary for general population and vulnerable population, which you can see they don't need to take any special precautions if it's in the good category. But also it's advised not to do any prolonged strenuous outdoor physical exertion during that time. You can see there are also other color-coded categories provided here, yellow, orange, red, and so on, which shows the level of severity of air quality for the day. So it would be important to understand what are the kind of illnesses that can result from severe air quality. For example, if you see the last category, it may cause respiratory illness in healthy people due to prolonged exposure. So there are various risks that are attached when it comes to this kind of poor air quality, severe air quality, and all of this can be checked based on the value of the air quality of that day in that particular region through this table to understand what are the linked and related health consequences and what advice can be followed, especially for the vulnerable population. So we've also often seen that with the traffic police personnel, they'll be using the traffic lights very much in their workplace at a regular level. But this kind of a traffic light is specifically designed for AQI. So if you can see, the traffic police workers first need to stop, check the AQI for the day in their area, and they can follow the app link that is provided here for the government's reporting. Second category is the orange category, check the health risks. It's important to pause and check the health risks, find out what the health advisory is that needs to be followed for the day. And the third is the green light. So before you step out of your home, before this personal traffic light should give you an advisory of how you can plan your day according to the AQI level for that particular day. So traffic lights not only at the workplace, but sort of to be able to visualize it before we step out from our homes. Can we also follow this kind of an AQI traffic light before we step out of our homes to reduce the exposure to air pollution? When it comes to the occupational risks, we can see that there are various vehicles, as was discussed before by the panelists as well, vehicles that contribute to pollution through chemicals released from exhaust pipes, etc. Particularly of concern are traffic jams, congestions, slow-moving traffic, which can lead to an increase in vehicular pollution and emissions. Also, the risk attached, the greater risk attached to diesel vehicles, older vehicles also needs to be addressed. Also, as you can see, resuspended road dust also provides a risk. These are deposits of vehicle or industrial exhaust, which also put a lot of risk and decrease the air quality in these kind of traffic-prone areas. There are also other climate-related risks. As workers in this kind of a workspace, there's already stress related to extreme weather, heavy rain, wind, solar heat, and cold, and all of these other risks along with air pollution are affecting the health of the workers. And there are different kinds of common air pollutants that the different personnel will be exposed to during their work. So some of these are listed here. So as we discussed, particulate matter was discussed earlier, ozone, lead, and all of these other air pollutants are also common in their workspace. So what are the health effects of air pollution? You can see that usually the misconception is that it may only be limited to perhaps respiratory illnesses. It may result in asthma, but the reality is, as you can see from this image, that it affects the entire body, and it not only affects physical health, but it also impacts mental health as well. So it can manifest in different ways: stroke, neurocognition, mental health, fatigue, heart, cardiovascular damage, lung cancer, etc. The bottom part of this infographic you can use to explain the life cycle approach. So it's not only something that you will feel the impact of at the current stage of your life, but it can span the entire life of not only your health, but it also impacts the health of future generations of your family. So right from pregnancy, premature birth, risk of long and short-term diseases affecting heart and lungs, cognitive ability, depression, mental health burden. There's also a lot of studies and a lot of research that's coming out to show the link between air pollution with diabetes, obesity, hypertension, stroke, arthritis, cancer, and it ultimately may cause early or premature death. So these are also illustrations of the same points about short-term and long-term health effects. So it's not only in the short term, but these can have severe health effects in the long term as well as the entire life cycle, the future generations of the family as well. So what is it that can be done to minimize exposure? So when it comes to the different personnel, it's very important in this particular group to emphasize the use of proper PPE, which the department may be providing, and also the use specifically within the PPE of N95 or N99 masks, and also to promote correctly wearing these masks, especially during peak pollution seasons, can be very beneficial. When we talk about the impact of exposure to air pollution, it can be definitely more severe for those who already have lung and heart diseases such as asthma, COPD, cardiovascular diseases. Risk of heart attack and stroke, etc., is much higher. And it's very important if workers have these illnesses to make sure that they are taking medications regularly, they are going in for regular health checkups, to ensure that, especially during peak pollution seasons, they are protective and they can take these protective measures. Very important to seek medical help whenever they feel they're experiencing certain symptoms, and ensure that they wear N95 mask, especially when an AQI advisory and AQI indicates that there is severe risk linked to the air quality for that particular day in the area where they are deployed. Some of the other strategies, the do's, if we talk about, as we mentioned, is PPE is very important. Checking the AQI for the place of work and trying to follow the health activity advisory. Taking more stringent actions if polluting vehicles are on the road. Also attending any community trainings, workshops that are regularly organized by your department. Also do not make sure that you are emphasizing this importance of pollution certificates of vehicles through their work, not to consume any tobacco or smoke cigarettes or related products. These are some of the very important points that can help to minimize exposure. And to conclude this part of the presentation, every community action counts, and every step that is taken can help to reduce air pollution and the effects of climate change. So we see traffic police personnel as in a leadership role. They are leaders in the community, and every action they take ultimately can help also raise awareness about harmful health effects. So as leaders, we encourage them to proactively take up all possible mechanisms to reduce traffic congestions, discourage violation of traffic laws and practices, and also at the same time encourage family and friends to stop use of solid fuels, biomass fuels, etc., and promote renewable energy resources in a personal capacity to promote it within their community, promote walking, cycling, public transportation, and also scale up green initiatives like planting of trees, etc., whether that's at the traffic police station or in their communities. In the training manual, you'll also see that there are certain extra activities provided which you can conduct with the participants. For instance, there's a section on myth busters. So for example, we often feel that if the air looks clean, then the air is safe. But often, as discussed, if you check the air quality for the day, it might actually not be in the safe category, and it may appear to be that way. So it's not only a winter problem, it's not only when the air does not look clean, the air quality could still be poor, and there will still be health advisories that need to be followed at the workplace and in general. And similarly, there is a lot of common questions and a lot of promotion of plant air purifying varieties of plants, etc. And planting plants and trees is definitely important, but it is not enough to clean the air inside the house. So these kind of misconceptions are also provided, and what are the facts linked to these myths are provided. So when you're conducting the session, you can take this in a discussion form wherein the points on the left side can be discussed as myths, and if people believe in them or what their perceptions are, and then simultaneously the facts linked to this can also be shared. There's also a pre-post survey that you can take once you have gone through the manuals and the flip charts to assess your understanding. You can mark these as yes or no. The answer key is also provided. And you can also, if time permits in the session that you're conducting, you can also conduct this as an activity with the participants. So now we'll just move to the Hindi portion. So I hope you can see the screen. So the flip chart again, अगर आप देखेंगे स्क्रीन पे flip chart लेफ्ट साइड पे है, और जो प्रशिक्षण गाइड है जिसके द्वारा आप flip chart को समझा सकते हैं प्रतिभागियों को, वो भी दिया गया है. अगर हम आगे जाएं तो पहले flip chart में पहले पृष्ठ पर अगर आप देखेंगे तो एक चित्र दिया गया है और उसके पीछे उस चित्र का वर्णन किया गया है. कौन से ऐसे मैसेज हैं जिनको आप समझा सकते हैं, क्या जरूरी, जैसे यहाँ पे आंकड़े दिए गए हैं वायु प्रदूषण को लेके कि कितनी मौत हुई वायु प्रदूषण से, कि वायु प्रदूषण भारत में कितना एक बहुत ही बड़ा मसला बन चुका है, और उसके बारे में यहाँ पे कुछ आंकड़े दिए गए हैं जो आप प्रतिभागियों को समझा सकते हैं. वायु प्रदूषण क्या है उस बारे में भी कुछ बिंदुएं दी गई हैं जिनके माध्यम से आप वायु प्रदूषण के बारे में प्रतिभागियों को समझा सकते हैं. साथ ही साथ जिस तरीके से हमने इंग्लिश मॉड्यूल में भी आपने देखा होगा, एक परिचय के तौर पे भी कुछ टेक्स्ट यहाँ पे दिया गया है. इसका आप उपयोग कर सकते हैं, अपना नाम यहाँ पे डाल के आप प्रतिभागियों को अपना परिचय दे सकते हैं. किस तरीके के सुझाव हैं जिनका आप उपयोग कर सकते हैं, वो भी कुछ बिंदुएं दी गई हैं, ताकि जब आप सेशन कर रहे हैं, चाहे वो 1 घंटे का सेशन है, कम है या ज्यादा है, कुछ इस तरीके के सुझाव आप अपने सेशन में ले सकते हैं, और इसके माध्यम से जो वायु प्रदूषण के बारे में समझाया गया है उसे प्रतिभागियों के साथ शेयर कर सकते हैं. जैसे कि देखा जा सकता है यहाँ पे बाहरी वायु प्रदूषण के बारे में दिखाया गया है, कितने स्रोत हैं बाहरी वायु प्रदूषण के. जैसे कि आप देख सकते हैं फसल का जलना, कचरा जलाया जाता है जब, वाहनों का जो धुआं है, इस तरीके के जो कहीं कहीं आप देख सकते हैं स्रोत दी गए हैं. और इनका जैसे कि हमने पिछले इंग्लिश मॉड्यूल में भी देखा, आप प्रतिभागियों से भी पूछ सकते हैं कि वो अपने वर्क प्लेस में कैसे इसे महसूस कर रहे हैं. साथ में अब ये अगर हमने स्रोत देखें तो इनका क्या स्वास्थ्य पे प्रभाव पड़ता है, ये फ्लिप चार्ट में आगे समझाया जाएगा. जैसे कि कितना ये जो PM 2.5 का कण है कितना छोटा है. अगर एक बाल का अगर यहाँ पे चित्र बना हुआ है, उससे आप समझा सकते हैं कि PM 2.5 कितना छोटा है, और वो हम जब उसको सांस लेते हैं तो वो हमारे फेफड़ों तक पहुंचता है और पूरे खून में भी हमारे घुस जाता है, और उससे कई स्वास्थ्य पे प्रभाव पड़ते हैं जो हम आगे जिसके बारे में हम डिस्कशन करेंगे. ये अंदरूनी प्रदूषण पे देखा जा सकता है. ये चित्र आप देख सकते हैं कि क्या चीजें हैं घर के अंदर जो केवल आप, जैसे अगर आप काम पे जा रहे हैं सिर्फ वहीं पे आप वायु प्रदूषण आपको अफेक्ट नहीं कर रहा है, घर के अंदर भी कई ऐसे स्रोत हैं जो वायु की गुणवत्ता को खराब करते हैं. जैसे कि अगर अगरबत्ती और धूप का जलना होता है, अगर मच्छर के लिए आप कोई अगरबत्ती जला रहे हैं उससे भी वायु प्रदूषण और हमारे स्वास्थ्य पे भी उसका प्रभाव पड़ता है। धूम्रपान है, जैसे अगर कोई घर में धूम्रपान या घर के बाहर धूम्रपान हो रहा है, उससे भी वायु की गुणवत्ता पे असर पड़ता है, साथ ही साथ हमारे स्वास्थ्य पे भी असर पड़ता है। तो केवल ये एक बाहरी प्रदूषण का मुद्दा नहीं है, वायु प्रदूषण अंदरूनी प्रदूषण का भी एक मुद्दा है। AQI को आप जैसे यहाँ देख सकते हैं कि किस तरीके से इसको एक टूल के तौर पे यूज किया जा सकता है। यहाँ पे वेबसाइट भी दी गई है, CPCB की वेबसाइट है, जिससे हर दिन का AQI चेक किया जा सकता है। जिस भी रीजन में, जिस भी एरिया में अगर कोई अगर एलोकेटेड है पर्सोनल, अगर कोई भी जैसे यातायात पुलिस कर्मी एक पर्टिकुलर एरिया में डिप्लॉयड हैं, तो वो उस दिन का AQI इस सूचकांक से चेक कर सकते हैं, ऑनलाइन वेबसाइट के माध्यम से भी या ऐप जो गवर्नमेंट की प्रोवाइड की गई है। अगर आप देखें तो अगर उत्तम अगर वायु की गुणवत्ता हो तो उसपे आप देखेंगे कोई भी जोखिम जो है वो कम है, और जो हमारे संवेदनशील जन समुदाय है उन पे भी इतना असर नहीं पड़ेगा। पर अगर आप दूसरी ओर जो अगर आप नीचे की तरफ देखें, जो लाल की तरफ अगर हम आ जाते हैं वायु गुणवत्ता सूचकांक में, तो गंभीर कैटेगरी में अगर आप देखें 401 से 500 AQI अगर हो जाता है, तो संभावित परिणाम हमारे स्वास्थ्य के लिए क्या हो सकते हैं, इसे आप देख सकते हैं। जैसे लंबे समय तक आपको जैसे अगर आप ज्यादा समय तक, जैसे कि आप सभी जानते हैं, अगर यातायात पुलिसकर्मी हैं वो अधिक समय बाहर बिता रहे हैं, तो उससे उनके शरीर पे क्या प्रभाव पड़ सकता है वो भी दिया गया है। क्या बीमारियां हैं जो उनको अफेक्ट कर सकती हैं, ये सब भी यहाँ पे दी गई हैं। तो हम चाह रहे थे कि अगर आप इस चित्र से देखें, ट्रैफिक जो हमारे यातायात पुलिसकर्मी हैं हर दिन इस बत्ती को देखते हैं, पर ये जो लाल बत्ती है अगर हम इसे अपने निजी जीवन में लाएं तो उसका उपयोग कैसे कर सकते हैं। ये एक AQI को हम ट्रैफिक पुलिस के नजरिए से देखें कि ये एक हमारा इंडिविजुअल ट्रैफिक लाइट है, कि घर निकलने से पहले हम ये सोचें कि रुकें लाल बत्ती के तौर पे, और सोचें कि दिन और क्षेत्र जहां हम काम कर रहे हैं या जहां हम रहते हैं वहां का AQI क्या है। जैसे कि बताया गया है इस वेबसाइट पे CPCB की, आप इसकी जांच कर सकते हैं। दूसरा है नारंगी, थोड़ा अगर आप ठहरें और सोचें कि स्वास्थ्य के क्या जोखिम है उस दिन के, वो भी आप यहाँ देख सकते हैं। और साथ में हरा, आप अपने दिन को उस तरीके से जो है प्लान करें और जो सलाह दी गई है उसका पालन करें ताकि आपके स्वास्थ्य पर कम असर पड़े। यहाँ आप देख सकते हैं कि जब हम बात करते हैं यातायात पुलिसकर्मी की, किस तरीके के जो यहाँ पे पदार्थ हैं उनको इफेक्ट कर रहे हैं। जैसे कि हमने पहले भी इंग्लिश वर्जन में भी इसकी बात करी, अगर धूल मिट्टी से लेकर कई ऐसे जोखिम है जो जिनका सामना वो दिन ब दिन कर रहे हैं। अत्यधिक गर्मी है, ठंड है, भारी बारिश है, साथ में UV रेज है, इस तरीके के चीजों के साथ वायु प्रदूषण का भी वो सामना कर रहे हैं। ध्यान देने की जरूरत है ऐसे एरियाज में जहाँ पे ट्रैफिक जैम ज्यादा है, भीड़ भाड़ ज्यादा है। अगर कोई धीमी गति से चलने वाली ट्रैफिक है वहां पे प्रदूषण का खतरा बहुत ज्यादा होता है। और बहुत जरूरी है कि ट्रैफिक पुलिसकर्मी, यातायात पुलिसकर्मी इन क्षेत्रों पे ज्यादा ध्यान दे, क्योंकि न केवल वो उनके स्वास्थ्य पर तो असर कर ही रहा है, साथ में जो भी अगर वहाँ कोई ड्राइवर है, यात्री हैं, सड़क पर चल रहे अगर कोई यात्री हैं या गाड़ी में बैठे ड्राइवर भी हों, उन सबको जो इस तरीके के जो वाहन का प्रदूषण है उसका असर पड़ सकता है और उसका काफी प्रतिकूल प्रभाव पड़ता है स्वास्थ्य पे। तो जैसे कि आप जानते ही हैं और आपके जो प्रतिभागी होंगे वो भी जो आपके प्रतिभागी हैं वो भी जानते होंगे कि वाहनों के निकास पाइप से किस तरीके का प्रदूषण निकलता है, किस तरीके के रसायन हैं वो यहाँ पे दिए गए हैं। जैसे कि लेड है, सल्फर है, इस तरीके के जो तत्व हैं, कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड, ये सब यहाँ पे दिए गए हैं जिनको आप समझा सकते हैं अपने प्रतिभागियों को। साथ ही साथ वायु प्रदूषण का स्वास्थ्य पर क्या प्रभाव है, नीचे दिए गए चित्र से आप देख सकते हैं कि ये जीवन के एक ही पड़ाव पे आपको प्रभाव नहीं करता है, प्रभावित नहीं करता है। ये पूरे जीवन, आजीवन इस स्वास्थ्य के प्रभाव देखे जा सकते हैं। तो गर्भावस्था में भी यदि कोई जो शिशु है उसके स्वास्थ्य पर इसका असर पड़ता है। जब वो शिशु पैदा हो जाता है उसके जन्म के बाद भी कई कम वजन होना, इस तरीके की बीमारियां हो सकती हैं। आगे फेफड़ों की बीमारियां, दिल की कई बीमारियां हो सकती है, मानसिक स्वास्थ्य की भी बीमारियां हो सकती है। जैसे कि हमने अंग्रेजी वाले में सेक्शन में भी डिस्कस किया था कि शारीरिक स्वास्थ्य ही नहीं है, मानसिक स्वास्थ्य भी जो है वायु प्रदूषण से उस पे असर पड़ता है। आप देख सकते हैं मधुमेह है, मोटापा है, उच्च रक्तचाप है, जैसे जिसे हाई ब्लड प्रेशर भी कहा जाता है, स्ट्रोक है, इस तरीके की बीमारियां, कैंसर, जो बीमारियां हैं वो अकाल मृत्यु की ओर भी ले जा सकती हैं। और आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे जो चित्र दिया गया है उसके माध्यम से कि किस तरीके से सिर्फ एक जो है दमा नहीं है या जो आपके फेफड़ों से जुड़ी बीमारियां हैं वहीं तक सीमित नहीं है, साथ ही साथ आप देख सकते हैं कि हृदय रोग हो सकता है, स्ट्रोक जैसे अभी हमने बात करी। इस तरीके से शरीर के विभिन्न जो बीमारियां हैं वायु प्रदूषण से पैदा हो सकती हैं, क्योंकि बहुत ही प्रतिकूल प्रभाव पड़ता है वायु प्रदूषण का स्वास्थ्य पे। जैसे कि आप देख सकते हैं कि अल्पकालिक क्या प्रभाव हैं, कम समय में आप देख सकते हैं आंखों में जलन, इस तरीके के नींद में जो कठिनाई है, इस तरीके की आप देख सकते हैं स्वास्थ्य पे प्रभाव पड़ते हैं। पर लंबे समय में अगर आप देखें स्ट्रोक, कैंसर, अस्थमा, इस तरीके की भी बीमारियां हो सकती हैं। बहुत जरूरी ये है कि हम अब सोचे कि क्या किया जा सकता है, प्रतिभागियों के साथ क्या किस तरीके की सलाह शेयर कर सकते हैं। बहुत जरूरी है कि पीपीई पे आप एम्फेसिस दें जब आप सेशन कंडक्ट कर रहे हैं, जो भी डिपार्टमेंट से प्रोवाइड किया गया है। N95 या N99 मास्क का अगर उपयोग किया जा रहा है वो काफी इफेक्टिव होता है। कपड़े का मास्क अगर हम पहने तो वो पेपर या कपड़े का मास्क भी कई लोग उपयोग में लाते हैं, वो इतना जो है प्रभाव नहीं देगा जितना N95 N99 मास्क देगा, और उसको भी सही ढंग से पहनना बहुत जरूरी है। और साथ ही साथ ये ध्यान देना जरूरी है कि जैसे हमने कुछ बीमारियों की बात की वो पैदा हो सकती हैं, पर कई लोगों को पहले से ही इस तरीके की बीमारियां हो सकती हैं। तो उन लोगों को ध्यान देने की जरूरत है कि वो अपनी दवाइयां समय से ले, और जब भी हो सके वो मेडिकल चेकअप जो है बहुत ही समय समय पर कराते रहें, अपनी जांच कराते रहें, ताकि जो पहले से उनको स्वास्थ्य की स्थिति है, कोई बीमारी है, वो और खराब ना हो जाए वायु प्रदूषण, वायु गुणवत्ता खराब होने पर। साथ ही साथ यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं जो यहाँ पे भी कुछ चित्रों के माध्यम से दिखाया गया है कि AQI को रोज चेक करना, उसमें दी गई एडवाइजरी को फॉलो करना एक बहुत ही जरूरी चीज है। सिगरेट या तंबाकू का सेवन ना करें। साथ ही साथ अगर आप जो भी जो आपके प्रतिभागी हैं, यातायात पुलिसकर्मी, वो वाहनों के प्रदूषण प्रमाण पत्र पे काफी काम करते हैं, तो उसका महत्व बहुत जरूरी है, क्योंकि वो समाज में वायु प्रदूषण को कम करने में बहुत ही जरूरी कदम है। और आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे उस तरीके के चित्र दिए गए हैं कि किस तरीके के विकल्प हैं जिनका उपयोग किया जा सकता है। और जैसे कि हमने इंग्लिश वर्जन में भी डिस्कस किया था कि जो ट्रैफिक पुलिस कर्मी है वो एक लीडर का रोल निभा रहे हैं, तो अपने काम से वो वायु प्रदूषण को तो कम कर ही रहे हैं, साथ में समाज में उनका एक बहुत जरूरी और महत्वपूर्ण एक वो रोल प्ले कर रहे हैं, जिसमें उनकी जहाँ की समुदाय में किस तरीके से वायु प्रदूषण को कम किया जा सकता है, तो किस तरीके के वो जो कदम है उठा सकते हैं, जैसे यातायात पुलिस स्टेशनों में वृक्षारोपण हो सके, उस तरीके के छोटे कदम भी बहुत मायने रखते हैं समाज में वायु प्रदूषण को कम करने के लिए। सार्वजनिक परिवहन का बढ़ावा दिया जाए, और साथ ही में अपने परिवार और दोस्तों में भी वो जो ईंधन और बायोमास के बारे में जैसे बात की गई है, वो ऐसे ऊर्जा संसाधनों का उपयोग करें जो कि वायु प्रदूषण को ना बढ़ाएं। इस तरीके के जो कुछ कदम है वो समाज में भी उसको आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं, और वो एक अहम रोल और एक अहम रोल प्ले करते हैं इसमें। तो जिस प्रकार से इंग्लिश वर्जन में भी डिस्कस किया गया था, यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं कि कुछ बिंदुएं दी गई हैं, जैसे कि हम सोचते हैं कि हवा अगर साफ दिख रही है तो उस दिन वायु प्रदूषण ज्यादा नहीं है, वायु गुणवत्ता ठीक है। पर बहुत जरूरी है कि हम ये याद रखें कि वायु साफ दिख सकती है, पर हो सकता है उस दिन का AQI ठीक ना हो, तो हमें AQI चेक करने से ही पता चल सकता है कि वायु की गुणवत्ता क्या है, उसे देखने से इस चीज का प्रमाण नहीं लगाया जा सकता है। इस तरीके से कुछ पॉइंट्स यहाँ दिए गए हैं, इनको आप प्रतिभागियों के साथ यूज करके एक डिस्कशन कर सकते हैं कि अगर कोई मिसकंसेप्शन है वायु प्रदूषण के बारे में, उनको आप क्लियर कर सकते हैं। जैसे कि कुछ तरीके के पौधे होते हैं जिनको बेचने की बहुत कोशिश की जाती है, सर्दी के महीनों में, पर केवल पौधे काफी नहीं है, हमें ध्यान देना है कि जो भी हमने जिन कदमों का यहाँ डिस्कशन किया था, वो N95 मास्क हो या AQI चेक करना हो, उन तरीके के जो कदम है वो उठाने ज्यादा जरूरी है। यहाँ पे एक सर्वेक्षण भी दिया गया है, आप प्रतिभागियों के साथ भी इसको शेयर कर सकते हैं देखने के लिए कि वो कितना कंटेंट जो है वो समझ पाए हैं। साथ ही आप अपने लिए भी इसका उपयोग कर सकते हैं कि आप जो ट्रेनिंग मैनुअल दी गई है, प्रशिक्षण गाइड है और फ्लिप चार्ट है, उसको कितने अच्छे तरीके से समझ पाए हैं। तो इसी के साथ हमारा जो यातायात पुलिस कर्मियों के मॉड्यूल थे वो यहाँ पे समाप्त होते हैं और हम शुरू करते हैं म्यूनिसिपल वर्कर्स के लिए। I'll just switch to English now. And as you can see, there is a flip chart on the left for municipal workers, which describes the air pollution and its impact on health of municipal workers. And on the right is a training manual in English. So these documents are also available in Hindi. First, we'll go over the English versions for the municipal workers. Yeah, as discussed previously, this also describes the problem of air pollution. The first page on the flip chart, again to re-emphasize, will show an infographic or an image. The back side of that page will provide information about air pollution. So how do you define air pollution? And clean air is a human right. What are the benefits of clean air, threats from polluted air, etc. And also some key statistics about the problem, the scale of the problem of air pollution in India, which you can see here and we have discussed previously. So the number of deaths and diseases due to air pollution in India are very high, as discussed previously. There are also guidelines that are provided in the training manual. So this is an excerpt from the training manual, which provides a guideline on how the session can be conducted. So the trainers can take some clues here and adapt it to the setting that they are working in. So if you can, for example, cover some of the contents that are already mentioned here on the slide and in the training manual. How is it that you can take a approach which ensures effective behavior change communication, and how different sort of participants can share their views as a participatory discussion during the session. Moving on to the contents, as you can see, this talks about different air pollutants, which we've already covered before. The size of the aerosols are shown here. The pathway of these inhalable materials are shown, how when these can potentially enter the lungs, enter the bloodstream. And the size of it is actually so small, as you can see, smaller than a strand of hair that's shown in the image. And when inhaled, it can be very hazardous and enter deep into the lungs and the bloodstream and impact our health, as will be explained in the following slides. Again, at the workplace, outdoor air pollution, there are different sources, trash burning, etc. All of these sources are contributing to poor air quality. These are the different sources that you can read out during the session. So the messages will be at the back of the flip chart. Moving on to indoor air pollution, the different sources of indoor air pollution, mainly to focus on the fact that it's not only the workplace, but also pollution at home or indoors, which can also contribute to poor health outcomes. Next, as we've already discussed, the AQI index and where you can check this resource and how it can help you to get some advice for the day, or how to go about your day and understand what can be the health consequences of the air quality levels. We've discussed this concept previously. Specifically, when we talk about the occupational hazards from work here, as was discussed by Dr. Payden as well, waste burning releases a lot of dangerous carcinogens like dioxins, furans, etc., which can cause a lot of health issues and also contribute to climate change. There's also vehicular traffic that this group of municipal workers is exposed to. If they're cleaning on the roads, they're also exposed to vehicular pollution, which we also discussed for traffic police workers, but it also impacts this group as well. And also particularly the risks that are attached to waste collection and segregation, fumes, particles, fibers, toxic chemicals that are released during these processes put these workers at particular risk. Also, when we talk about health impacts, as we discussed previously as well, these can manifest across the life cycle. So it's not just when the exposure happens or it takes place, but it can affect the individual and generations to come. It's not only a physical health issue, it is also a mental health issue of impacting neurocognition, causing fatigue, anxiety, headache, stroke, etc. And also in the long term, chronic conditions like diabetes, hypertension, or high blood pressure, lung cancer, etc. So this has been divided in this image at the back of the flip chart in short-term and long-term health effects, as we discussed. Again, driving the very important fact of how important it is to check with the department if PPE has been provided. Very important component of that PPE is N95 or N99 masks, which can protect the individuals from air pollutants, dust, etc., especially during winter months, especially during morning working hours, during peak pollution season. Very important to make sure that it's worn correctly and in the correct manner. Also, something that needs to be important and importantly emphasized with the participants is that you can ask them to remember if they have any conditions from previous health conditions. So if they already have asthma, or if you feel they have any heart disease, they need to be particularly, they need to pay particular attention to their health during these peak pollution time. They need to go for regular medical checkups and seek medical help whenever they experience any kind of symptoms. It's very important for them to pay particular attention to their health. So people who have any kind of pre-existing health conditions, but also some people may develop health conditions while exposed, working in these kind of conditions. Also, some of the actions that are important and that have been discussed before. So it's very important, again, as we discuss the role of PPE, do not engage in open burning of waste, and also discourage other people in the community from participating in open burning of waste. So that can be unsegregated waste, plastic, leaves, e-waste, as was discussed earlier. These also end up going in the landfills, and sometimes are also burnt at the roadside areas as well. So it's important to not engage in any of this kind of open burning of waste. It's any kind of activities or trainings or workshops that they're being conducted, to please participate in them is very important. Also, as we discussed, very important to follow safe measures to collect, segregate, and dispose waste. And also, as we talked about the community, the municipal workers play a very important part in the community, and each action they take is actually moving us towards a greener world. So it's very important that they also are able to, discourage this kind of open burning. They are also able to advocate for waste reduction, separation, management, etc., recycling, reusing, and reducing. These key messages for the community. Also encouraging family and friends to stop use of solid fuels, biomass fuels, etc., and switch to renewable energy, whether that's at home. Also to promote walking, cycling, or public transport. Also important to just ensure that they are also able to contribute to a greener surroundings as well, because every community action counts, and there is a need to take any step we can to reduce air pollution and its health impacts. Again, in this section as well, there are myth busters in your training manual. You can use these to conduct the discussion with the municipal workers. So you may find that some people already know these facts, but it will also be good to just make sure that these key take-home messages are emphasized. Also, again, there's a quiz that will be provided, which you can conduct with the participants, and you can also use it to assess your own sort of understanding. Similarly, we'll move to the Hindi version. हिंदी अगर आप देख सकते हैं, लेफ्ट साइड में फ्लिप चार्ट दिया गया है और राइट साइड में प्रशिक्षण गाइड दिया गया है. और पहला पृष्ठ जो होगा वो इंफोग्राफिक है या वो चित्र है, और उसके पीछे उसका वर्णन दिया गया है किस तरीके से जो आंकड़े हैं उस वायु प्रदूषण को लेकर उसके बारे में यहाँ पे समझाया गया है, जैसे हमने पहले भी इस बारे में बात की है. जैसे कि आप देख सकते हैं कौन सी जो चीजें हैं प्रशिक्षक अपने मन में रख सकते हैं सेशन कंडक्ट करते हुए. कुछ इस तरीके के सुझाव दिए गए हैं. जो हमने ट्रैफिक पुलिस वर्कर्स में देखा था, उस तरीके का परिचय देने के भी टेम्पलेट वहां दिए गए हैं, जिसको आप अपने उपयोग में ला सकते हैं. यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं कि किस तरीके से, जैसा हमने बात की थी, ये जो कण है कितने छोटे कण है और हमारे फेफड़ों में और हमारे शरीर में घुसकर किस तरीके से आप देख सकते हैं इसमें. वो आगे हम इसके बारे में आप जानकारी प्रतिभागियों के साथ शेयर कर सकते हैं कि ये स्वास्थ्य पर कितना प्रभाव करता है. इस तरीके के स्रोत भार जो हमारे नगर पालिका के कर्मचारी हैं उनको देखने को मिलता होगा रोज अपने काम में, चाहे वो कचरा जलाना हो या कोई भी वाहनों का धुआं हो, जहाँ पे भी वो काम कर रहे हैं इस चीज का प्रभाव उन पर पड़ता है। साथ ही साथ अगर वो घर पे भी जाएं या कहीं बंद कमरे में भी हो तो ऐसा नहीं है कि वायु प्रदूषण उनको वहां पे जो है उसका असर नहीं कर सकती है। अगर वायु की गुणवत्ता अंदर भी अंदरूनी वायु प्रदूषण के माध्यम से स्वास्थ्य पर बहुत ही प्रतिकूल प्रभाव डालती है। जैसे कि आप देख सकते हैं, अगर अगरबत्ती है या धूप घर में जलना हो या कोई तंबाकू का सेवन करे या धूम्रपान करे, उससे घर के सदस्यों के स्वास्थ्य पे भी प्रभाव पड़ेगा और वायु की गुणवत्ता जो घर में है या बंद कमरे में है उस पे भी प्रभाव पड़ता है। AQI जैसे हमने इसकी बात करी थी पहले भी, इसमें से आप देख सकते हैं वेबसाइट पे जाके CPCB की कि किस तरीके की वायु गुणवत्ता है उस दिन की और क्या सलाह है जो हम जिसे ध्यान में रखते हुए अपने दिनचर्या को प्लान कर सकते हैं। जैसे यहाँ पे हमने ट्रैफिक पुलिस लाइट के माध्यम से दिखाया था। इस तरीके से कौन से ऐसे जो है किस तरीके के ऐसे कण हैं जिनको हम देखते हैं और कौन से ऐसे पदार्थ हैं जिन्हें हम देखते हैं। जैसे अगर कचरे को जलाया जाए, और ज्यादातर ये जो कचरा है ये सेग्रीगेट नहीं होता है, तो कई तरीके के ई-वेस्ट हैं, प्लास्टिक हैं, सब एक साथ जलते हैं और इसके कारण जो आप देख सकते हैं कि कुछ तरीके के जो पदार्थ निकलते हैं, चाहे वो जो प्रदूषक हैं वो बेंजीन है या सल्फर डाइऑक्साइड है, इस तरीके के जो पदार्थ निकलते हैं कचरा जलाने से, उससे न केवल उनके स्वास्थ्य पे प्रभाव पड़ रहा है, वायु की गुणवत्ता भी उससे उसका असर पड़ रहा है। साथ में जैसे कि हमने पहले बात की थी कि जब हम बात करते हैं स्वास्थ्य पे प्रभाव की और प्रतिकूल प्रभाव की, तो केवल मानसिक स्वास्थ्य और शारीरिक स्वास्थ्य उस समय नहीं है जबकि आपको वायु प्रदूषण से आपका एक्सपोजर है, पर ये आजीवन आप देख सकते हैं नीचे दिए गए चित्र से कि कई कई बीमारियों में ये आप इसको आप महसूस कर पाएंगे। जैसे कि मधुमेह है, उच्च रक्तचाप है, और इससे अकाल मृत्यु भी हो सकती है। साथ ही साथ आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पे फेफड़े का कैंसर, और इस तरीके से आप चित्र के माध्यम से प्रतिभागियों को समझा सकते हैं कि स्वास्थ्य पे क्या प्रभाव। पड़ते हैं, प्रभाव क्या है वो भी यहाँ पे दिए गए। बात की थी कि क्या जो ऐसे मेजर हैं जो वो ले सकते हैं। बहुत जरूरी है कि अगर उनको विभाग से PPE मिल रहा है तो वो उसका उपयोग करें, और N95 का खासकर मास्क का उपयोग करें। और जो भी ऐसे व्यक्ति हैं जिनको पहले से ही कोई हृदय संबंधी बीमारियां हैं या उनके फेफड़े में बीमारियां हैं, किसी को दमा, अस्थमा,
Surbhi, your voice is cracking. I would request you to please check your internet connection. We cannot hear you.
उनको लगती है तो वो जल्द ही चिकित्सा सहायता लें। यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं चित्र के माध्यम से कि किस तरीके से जो ये हमने मेजर डिस्कस किए, चाहे वो धूम्रपान हो या किस तरीके से आप देख सकते हैं कि कचरे का जलना हो, इन मेजर्स को डिस्करेज किया जाना चाहिए। और जैसे कि हमने बात की थी कि हम जहाँ बात करते हैं, हमारे नगर पालिका के कर्मचारी जो हैं बहुत ही एक महत्वपूर्ण रोल निभा रहे हैं हमारे समाज में। जो भी वो कार्य कर रहे हैं वो वायु प्रदूषण को कम करता है और साथ ही साथ उसके स्वास्थ्य प्रभावों को भी कम करता है। तो इस तरीके से जो है कुछ मेजर्स लिए जा सकते हैं कि वो अपने समाज में हम किस तरीके से वायु प्रदूषण को और अपने उसमें जो कंट्रीब्यूशन को हम कम कर सकते हैं। तो इसी के साथ आप देखेंगे, जैसे हमने पहले डिस्कस किया था, ट्रेनिंग मैनुअल प्रशिक्षण गाइड में भी कुछ कॉमन मिसकंसेप्शन दिए गए हैं, और साथ में आप देख सकते हैं दाईं ओर में उसका तथ्य क्या है वो भी दिया गया है, और कुछ एक प्रश्न सूची दी गई है जिससे आप अपने सेशन में इसका उपयोग कर सकते हैं और सेशन कंडक्ट कर सकते हैं, कि ताकि जो की मैसेज है वो प्रतिभागियों तक पहुंचे हैं या नहीं वो आप जान सकते हैं। तो इसी के साथ समय को ध्यान देते हुए मैं यहाँ पे रुकूंगी और आशा करती हूँ कि जो ये मैनुअल और फ्लिप चार्ट की सहायता से आप सभी ट्रेनर्स जो हैं यातायात पुलिस कर्मियों और नगर पालिका कर्मचारियों को वायु प्रदूषण के दुष्प्रभाव के बारे में जागरूक कर पाएंगे, किस तरीके से वो उनके स्वास्थ्य पे प्रभाव कर रहा है उसके बारे में भी जागरूकता पैदा कर पाएंगे, ताकि वे भी जो एक बहुत ही अहम, जैसे हमने कहा कि रोल निभा रहे हैं, वो अपने मौलिक अधिकार को, विशेषकर उन जो अपने जान को दांव पर लगाकर रोज काम कर रहे हैं, वो इस वायु प्रदूषण से अपने आप का बचाव कर सकते हैं। तो इसी पे मैं रुकूंगी और कोई भी अगर आपके सवाल है वो हम इस समय एड्रेस कर सकते हैं।
Thank you very much, Surgi, for the great efforts covering both traffic, police personnel and the municipality workers. We would like, from the, from those who are attending these events to give their feedbacks or to, make their queries, because there are all those experts who are sitting here who, who would like to clear your queries also.
Dr. Ameshwar, I have been noting down some questions. Can we just take them now?
Yes, we can do that also. At the same time, I think those officers from the municipality department and the police department, traffic police department, if they are here, if they can say something on this event regarding that the steps that we are taking up, and whether how this will be utilized by the departments, and how this will be helping the departments. I would personally invite the commissioners from this Bhubaneswar, sir.
There are a lot of police professionals on the attendees today. It would be nice if any one of them would like to suggest something about the modules that were shown today. See if someone is interested. I've been asking on the chat box, but not heard from anyone. But if anyone is, please come forward, and would like to hear from you.
Dr. Akash, Pritam Jana, SI from Odisha, have asked a question.
Yes.
She's I've given her option to speak also, but on behalf of Pritam Jana, I would like to ask the question. The question is, what kind of mask is best suited for traffic control officials? Whether continuous use of mask is likely to cause any respiratory problems in long run?
I think experts on the panel may kindly respond to the question, please.
I would suggest Dr. Purnima may give the reply, and after that we will complement it.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So just in response to this specific question, as Subhi shared in her presentation, the masks that are ideally advised are the N95 and the N99 masks. They're supposed to be more protective and good in their filtering efficacy. So that is what is ideally suggested. In terms of long-term use of masks, those are probably some of the myths. I think it is good to have some kind of breaks where you can remove them, but really it is not, there is no evidence really to document that it causes discomfort. So it might be good to kind of take short breaks where they can change their environment if at all possible and remove the masks for short periods of time. But there is really no evidence documented to for or against this long-term use of masks.
Manjit, if you would like to add something.
I think I'll completely agree with Dr. Poonima as what she has already said in terms of the choice of masks. The mask has to be kind of again to have a good filtration efficiency and efficacy, so that, because here we are talking about particulate matter which is of 2.5 and less than that size. So that's why it's always recommended to have some kind of a N95 mask where 95% of the particulate matter could be filtered. And here again, that differentiation of kind of since we are already into pandemic, here we are not talking about large droplets to kind of for COVID, but here we are talking about PM 2.5, very small particulate matter. So therefore, a filtration efficacy is an important consideration. In terms of the long-term studies, or the long-term usage of the masks, yes, there is presently no evidence as to kind of it creates some kind of a health impacts on the body. But yes, to kind of sometimes it creates some kind of a discomfort. And especially during the pandemic, there have been lots of, I think, as Dr. Poonima said, in terms of the myths, yes, where the low oxygen levels or dyspnea, but then I don't think so there's any credible evidence in the medical science to talk about this. So you can this could be kind of used, but then yes, in order to avoid discomfort, it's good to have breaks. But again, if you're working in that kind of an environment, it would be very difficult for you to really switch a place to kind of have a very clean air, a place to kind of really take out your masks. So I think that's from my side. Back to you, Dr. Rameshwar.
Thank you very much. From the program side of regarding about the marks for the air pollutions, we are also getting lots of these questions, not only from the from the public, but also from all other officials from the ministries, from departments, all regarding this part. And we are trying to have in this the evidence of this marks, not only for this traffic police, but also for all these sectors, all these vulnerable groups, all the public purpose. We have been trying to have a proper evidence on this. So we are tying up with ICMR to have this this research on this area, not only here but also including this air purifiers also. And we know that at the moment, although we are not having this enough evidence, but still there are these anecdotes type. There are this information is coming from different quarters, from different areas. Recently, what I have heard is from the this IIT, this from Turkey. They have been venturing out on this mask along with this with the use of this HEPA. But we are not fully recommending on this what to say, we are not having that enough data to support on this part. But still, we would say that at least these marks would be to some extent will be helping the this to those more vulnerable group of these populations. We have this observed in the time of this COVID pandemic that at least it is helping. So others about the impact for the long term, we are not what to say not we would say that that is more of the mid part, as it has been explained. I mean, shared from the expert also. So we are not what to say, not thinking that will create problem to the traffic officers by using these marks. Thank you to Pridham Jena, for what to say, for your feedback and for your queries. Renuka, any other questions?
Yes, Dr. Rameshwar. On the same line, Dr. Jitendra wants to know how often should the traffic police officers or the municipal officers who are exposed to high levels of air pollution should change their N95 masks if they are using it.
That's very, let's say, crucial and critical question. And how often that I think that will depend on the this level of pollutions, on the level of this this the length that you are working, and on the what to say, you see actually traffic, we are saying that they are exposed to outdoor air pollution, but it depends on the level of AQI in that city also. It depends on where they are also working also, the direction, whether during that time traffic this is heavily jammed or not, what type of these vehicles are also like these vehicles which are using diesels, heavy the truckers and all, there are many considerations on that part, so this will be, we will be giving you we will not say that this how frequently that we have to what is said change. I think Manjit also will supplement that part.
No, I think Dr. Mashu, you've said it very rightly. It completely depends upon the level of the particulate matter in that particular area in which you are in at that particular moment. So it's kind of since this N95 mask has kind of a pose that helps you kind of breathe and you suck the air, but after a point of time all these pores are kind of clogged. So with the kind of pollution levels, so it will not be possible for you to kind of breathe if there is a proper sealing of the mask on your face, and if there's kind of no other percolations of the air which is coming in, so you'll not be able to breathe if the whole particulate matter has clogged and you will feel discomfort. And what happens is normally we try to adjust our mask because we are gasping for air, and we try to kind of and that doesn't help, because again you are again breathing the same air which is kind of outside. So yes, this needs a frequent change. I think with at some of the places and the kind of pollution in some of the cities or kind of areas we may have, you may kind of even change it kind of every 3 to 4 hours. But then it's all depends upon the cost consideration, because these masks also kind of quite expensive. And therefore, again, coming back to what Dr. Rameshwar said just before this, that masks, neither there is kind of no credible health evidence for the long term that yes, it kind of helps your health. Wearing masks helps your health. But the only solution is if we are kind of as a community, as a society, we all have to advocate towards reducing the sources of pollution, because that is only would be the long-term solution, and not kind of the end of pipe solutions like the masks or the air purifiers, I think, which has already been captured. So not a magical figure in terms of how many hours you may do it, but then you will have to change it frequently if the pollution load is very high. Over from my side.
I think Pritam Jena, are you there? Hello, Pritam Jena,
yes,
are you?
Yes, sir. I'm
Can
present.
you show your? We are, extremely, we delight. We are grateful for your questions and queries, and to respond to you. And we are struggling in many of the areas in this area. We are trying to have, many associations with others also, to bring into the Indian context and Indian evidence on this part. But at the moment, we would still, you can open your, this video. I think that would be more, I think, more beautiful. And so this is the, at the present moment, what we are discussing, these are what we have, But I think in the next few years, if the research and this, it is done, I think we can give a more better, reply on that part. But still, 3 to 4 hours has been said, and has been practiced even in the, these medical communities on the use of these masks. There are some criteria for using masks. Like if it becomes weight that you have to change, and if you are using for what is say about 4 to 8 hours, depending on the this the directions from the makers and all. So these are the ways that we need to see and check, and these are the ways that we have to utilize that way. Thank you very much, Pritam ji.
Thank you,
Moving on to the next question, Dr. Rameshwar. Dr. Amol Patil wants to know how frequently should medical checkups be organized and what are the indication or investigation for protection of traffic policemen working at heavy traffic junctions? And is there any cutoff or fitness indicators through which they can know is their health being impacted or compromised already?
I would suggest Dr. Purnima to start, this response, please.
Thank you, Dr. Patil, for your question. I think as a routine, it would be good if at the minimum every 6 months, if some kind of health checkup can be organized. From the perspective of air pollution, intuitively, we all know that the impact is on respiratory health. And the one indicator of it is lung function test. So I think it would be a great initiative to do a baseline at least one spirometry test for these the particular occupational groups, the traffic personnel, given that they are the most vulnerable to the ambient air pollution. So a spirometry, a lung function test, gives us both indication of obstructive lung capacity as well as restrictive lung disease, both forms of respiratory disease. And it would be useful to have one at baseline for everybody. And given that we now know the evidence that even heart disease, stroke, diabetes, all of these are indirectly or directly linked to air pollution, I think including some blood investigations like the blood glucose and the blood pressure. We have documented evidence now linking exposure to ambient air pollution to blood pressure as well. So every 5 to 10 micrograms increase in PM 2.5 can increase 3 to 5 millimeters mercury of the blood pressure. So these baseline investigations of blood pressure, diabetes by doing the fasting blood glucose, as well as lung health by doing spirometry would be very useful. And at a minimum 6 months, once in 6 months, or a year, an annual checkup for sure.
There's a follow-up question on this, Dr. Purnima, where Palash wants to know, is there any way of measuring air pollutants in human body? Are there any score or guidelines through which we can know how many air pollutants are there in our body after certain test? Or can there be any certain test which will help us determine air pollutant levels in our body?
No, not that I know of. I think we have linked exposure, exposure levels by measuring ambient air pollution or other particulate matter, PM10, PM2.5, by various methods, whether it is through monitoring stations data or by taking satellite data and linking it to health pollution. But personal exposure, it's more cumbersome, but by putting personal exposure monitors on individuals, we have done initial studies in a small subgroup of people looking at their individual exposure to ambient PM 2.5. So monitors are there, little monitors which people can carry on their backpack. That actually is a good thought actually to maybe you do such a study in the traffic police, where they carry this monitor on their backpack and we are able to document the 24-hour exposure to PM 2.5. So the monitor can be used. That's all. There's nothing like blood levels to kind of do these. Of course, lead and stuff can be done. So blood lead levels is possible.
Okay, so there's another question which has been discussed by Surabhi during the entire discussion. But Dr. Purnima, if you can also just again lay emphasis on what are the other measures apart from a PPE or wearing mask that individuals can take to protect their health. So a lot of people have asked it again and again. So though it was mentioned but like key 2-3 points, if you can mention again, it would be good for participants to hear.
Yeah, I think Subhi's done an excellent job of giving an overview of what we have included in the manuals themselves, in the training manual. So she could only, give an overview over here, but there's a lot of detailed interventions that individuals can do. So personal protective equipment, definitely, the masks. The other issue that she highlighted, I think every time quite frequently, is looking at the air quality index of the place and taking actions based on that. That is very important. On a daily basis, you can decide, whether you need to step out. Of course, there are occupational groups that have to step out and you have to do that. Maybe the personal protection devices then come into play over there. I think in terms of other interventions, those who are more vulnerable. So baseline kind of health assessments can help to categorize people according to low risk, middle, or high risk individuals. Maybe for those individuals, a kind of duty roster which helps to kind of place them in situations or in duty timings which are not, at times of high risk levels. Maybe those kind of interventions, it's a kind of a HR thing. I know, people who are doing the duty rosters have to take account, but I think it's worth doing given that is the health of the individuals who are involved. So I think those are different kind of social kind of lens to the interventions that you can take. Surbhi, is there anything in particular that is there that you would want to highlight apart from PPE and
Yes, I think Dr. Kunma, you've covered the point. We've suggested certain measures that can be taken at the workplace, which, for instance, I think somebody in the chat has also mentioned rotation, etc. But we're very aware of how it completely depends on how the department functions and how HR is organized within it. But definitely that's one of the suggestions also listed in the document.
And of course, prevention is key. So there are public health measures also that can be taken to curb the pollution at source. So, whether that's vehicular pollution or planting trees, the interventions can be many. So I think at contextual level, it can be decided what interventions work in a particular region. So I think those steps could be taken as well.
I would like to share that the major purpose of today's this webinar is to sensitize the police officials about this health consequence of working for traffic policemen on the major traffic junction where they are exposed to high pollutants. And it's this level of sensitization that eventually leads them to take necessary measures to protect the health of their police constables or police professionals who are working. So one of the major follow-ups that is expected of them is once that this webinar is over today, to take it forward, to train, to teach their police inspectors and constables working across their state, make them aware of the health consequences, have a debate about it, let them come up with questions, find solutions. Solutions exist, and they need to be only modified according to the local requirements. The thought of having periodic assessment of occupational risks has always been for a very long time existing, and Dr. Purnima Prabhakaran has very rightly mentioned that it's time that all police departments find opportunities to arrange for a lung function test of their policemen who undergo these long hours exposures, because that's what is expected to provide their force a sort of health periodic checkup, and of course provide them their PPE so that they are able to withstand this long hours of exposure, rotate them in duties, find vulnerable ones, do not expose the vulnerable policemen to duties in high risk areas, and all other measures that have been discussed today. But that all comes on the only when you discuss about it, when you talk about it with your policemen, when you raise their level of awareness about it. So at the conclusion, I'll again once say that please do not forget to take this message across to all your police men who are posted in your state, so that they can make the best use of this knowledge and become aware and raise questions, come back asking questions to you so that you can arrange measures. Thank you.
Dr. Mishra, there are a few more questions. If you allow, I can ask them.
I think we can ask, yes, we can do that, one or more, two questions.
So again, this was answered by Surbhi during the presentation, but there are a few more people who have asked. some examples of ways indoor air pollutions can be reduced. So the measures individual can take to reduce their exposure to air pollution at their homes. Dr. Purnima Surbhi, if you would want to answer that.
I think indoor air pollution, again, the sources are very different in different contexts. Like, you know, in many of the rural areas, people are still using biomass for cooking, for heating, for warming in the cold places. So I think that is one of the first interventions that we need to do, you know, move away from biomass or burning coal for cooking. So clean cooking fuels is what this should be one of the first earliest of interventions that we should do. And I think we have made that even at a national level through the PMUY program. But I think the problem has been in the implementation and uptake for whatever reason. So I think behavior change is a big thing. Telling people health messaging, telling them that moving away from unclean cooking fuels is also because it's impacting your health. Maybe that will change their behavior. You know, there are people who still continue to use the unclean cooking fuels. We have heard situations where people say the food tastes better if we cook on, you know, this kind of chula. So we would like to continue using it. So I think behavioral change is also important. And of course, where we can't provide clean cooking fuels, making what is available clean. So, you know, whatever interventions are possible at a household level. I think, again, we have heard about burning of mosquito coils, incense sticks. These are also a thing. Passive smoking. If people are smoking within closed environments, that is another source. So cutting off the sources is probably one of the steps that people can take. And it varies from context to context. Ventilation, I think good cross ventilation where possible. Having chimneys in the kitchen area, those are also steps that people can take. So again, if you want to add.
No, I think that covers a lot of it. And I think in the modules that we'll be going through next, we'll be re-emphasizing some of these points again.
Okay, so two last questions. One is there a difference between health impacts on traffic police officers and municipal officers because of their exposure to air pollution?
I think both these occupational groups are pretty much in the external environment. So in terms of health impacts, I think it's the health impacts vary at individual level as well as contextual level. So if somebody is already vulnerable to either heart disease or respiratory disease, it depends at individual level what the risk is. But in terms of, I think traffic police, maybe more because of vehicular pollution. Often there's idling of vehicles at the traffic signals. I think that's a very important source of pollution for traffic personnel. Many people don't switch off their engines. I think this is a small but important step. If people don't keep their engine running, then if their pollution levels are not actually adhered to, they have not looked at their pollution levels, but still by switching off engines, I think they reduce the risk for people around them, including the traffic police. For waste, waste management workers. So when we talk of municipal workers, to my mind, it is people who are collecting household waste, the garbage collection, the street sweepers. Those are people who are vulnerable to maybe different kinds of pollutant levels, like the road dust, the construction and demolition waste, maybe the trash collection itself exposes them to several types of risks. So I think in those differences are there, but at the end of the day, the health impacts are definitely on the respiratory health, on skin, on eyes, irritation of the eyes, watering of the eyes. I think these are immediate short-term health impacts that we see in both groups. The long-term effects could probably depend on individual vulnerability and pollution levels, of course.
Thank you, Dr. Purnima. There's another question about how we can separate or reduce air pollution from crop burning. Though this is not directly part of the session that we're talking about, and I think it might be covered in the next session. So if you want to take this question, you can take it now, or you can talk about it later.
I think, that's a very, again, a context specific situation, stubble burning, agricultural crop burning. Yeah, I think it will be addressed in the next section, but that's a whole piece by itself. I'm not sure that it is something that we can address in this session. I think, again, cutting down at source, addressing the issues and giving alternative options to the farmers providing them that mechanization, the different options of mechanized handling of stubble, I think is going to help them. But there are various issues even there in implementation. Those are a lot of different issues that need to be addressed in that space.
Yes, Renuka, then we can, should we can start another session. And, after that, we will try to take up the other questions and all queries. And should we, are you there?
Yes, I'll just start sharing screen. I hope you can see it now.
All right.
Thank you everyone for that insightful Q&A. So moving on to the other two modules in the other two groups here, as you can see on the screen, the first one that we'll start with is a flip chart and again a training manual for air pollution and its impact on children's health. So the format is similar. Flip chart has infographics, illustrations on the first page, and at the back is the text-based information that you as trainers can use to disseminate key messages. The training manual, for instance, has things and features such as objectives of the discussion on air pollution. For example, what is it that needs to be achieved in your sessions that you'll be conducting in learning environments, schools, etc., with students and children. So essentially to emphasize the importance of clean air, the connection between air pollution and health effects, etc. And in this module, in these modules, you'll see some of the basics of air pollution will be covered, which we discussed in the modules previously, but also at the same time, this has a few more interactive activities shared in the training module, which you can conduct based on the time available with you during the session. So talking about the first infographic talks about air quality and air pollution and provides a basic definition of air quality and air pollution. What is air quality? What is air pollution? And you can use some of these points mentioned in this page to explain what air pollution is caused by, for example, harmful gases, dust, smoke, odors, or any toxic substances in the air. So simple messages to talk about air quality and air pollution as starting point for children. Some of the activities, as I mentioned, that are unique to this module. For example, this activity demonstrates the kind of scale of air pollution. For example, it's using a candle and a Pyrex glass cover. So if we light a candle and cover it with this glass, and we can slowly see that sort of, you may have also experienced this, you start to see the soot that settles on the glass and it starts turning black. So using some of these kind of small examples to show how, if it's this kind of a small candle is kind of leading to that kind of polluting soot. What if we imagine similar combustion when it takes place on a very large basis in our society? How much smoke and how much pollution is that going to produce in a larger area? So some of these small activities to help them understand the scale of pollution in their environment. Some of the other examples of the activities include, for example, to be able to understand and visualize air pollution for children and students using a damp cloth or a tissue. This can be done in, of course, if you're in a school setting and there's a playground, it can be done there, or you can also advise it as a home activity, as mentioned here, depending on the time again available for you. So using that damp cloth or tissue and using it to use that on different surfaces as an exercise to understand and look at the dirt that is on the cloth. So to be able to understand and visualize how air is polluted and what kind of effects it can have, which will be discussed in the following modules. So again, these are some of the basics that we've already discussed. In the interest of time, I'll move quickly from these basics. But there are, as I said, activities accompanying each of these. So for example, to be able to understand the kind of the particles in the small size and how they may not smell a certain way, but they're still entering your lung and bloodstream. This is like a smell test based activity that can again be done in the classroom, or you can always advise it as a home activity. Then, as we've already discussed, indoor air pollution and various sources of indoor air pollution that you can discuss with the students. Outdoor air pollution and the different sources that you can discuss with students, and you can use the activities, again, as I said, which are unique to this module. For example, here, students can use a kind of a rack and put petroleum jelly, Vaseline of any of such kind and attach it to a string. And if they hang this at their home, or even it can be done in their classroom, they'll notice after a couple of days that it starts collecting something in the wind catcher. So this kind of an experiment will show the kind of sources of air pollution and how the air can get polluted, even if they can't see those pollutants. There is still a lot of different elements in the air which they are breathing in on a daily basis. Again, this talks about air quality, which we've already covered. Student activity linked to this is to make 3 sets of paper cutouts. So as we saw, there are different color paste categories, having chits cut out in each of these color categories and labeling them with each of these columns. So for example, if I go back to show, each of these will have good, satisfactory, moderate chits. Then there will be health consequences chit and then one on advice. So this kind of color-coded category, AQI level, and then the other sort of indicators that we see when it comes to health effects and advice. So these will be distributed among the students. And it would be good if you would do this in the classroom, as it requires a larger group. And then each student will have to find the corresponding card, which is that which AQI has which health advice, what possible health effects. So this will be kind of an interactive activity wherein they can get up and interact amongst each other to find the different categories within the AQI. So it helps them understand this message much better. There can also be a game of yes or no, asking, just to test their understanding of whether they were able to understand it or not. In terms of very simple messages, for example, is it okay to go out and play if the AQI card shows dark green? Or these kind of questions can be asked to make sure that something that's a bit more complicated as a concept can be simplified for their understanding so that they can also use it. They can feel empowered to use it on a daily basis as children and students. We're also now going into the health effects portion here. Also, as you may have seen in the occupational health groups, obviously the level of understanding is different, but here we're starting from the basics of respiratory system and lungs. So going over the basics of how this works in the body. You can also adapt it on the basis of the learning levels of the participants that you're working with. And these are some of the facts that you can see on the screen that can be shared about lung capacity, how air is a basic need of life, how much does an average adult breathe in, how much air do they breathe in, the toxic substances that can affect their lungs over time. So this is a precursor to the other health effects of air pollution that will be explained in the following parts. Again, certain activities that can be used, so basic breathing exercises that can be done for them to observe the pattern in which they breathe in, and how that can eventually we'll see and be able to explain through the flip charts and training manual how that affects air pollution will affect these systems. So some of these facts about air pollution, as you may have seen in the news, as well, the kind of scale of impact that this air pollution has in India on children's health has been largely documented and is continuing to be captured. So, for example, not just in India, globally, 1 in every 10 deaths can be attributed to air pollution. So it's becoming a huge issue for children's health. And we can see that impact in India and across the globe. So why are children more vulnerable? So these are some basic ways in which to explain what are the physical and biological factors. Children, unlike adults, do not have fully developed organs to be able to explain to them that their airways are narrower as compared to adults. The immune systems are not as developed as adults, and also they tend to inhale more air, which makes them also more vulnerable. Similarly, there are other behavioral and environmental factors, depending on the time they spend outside, or what kind of, one common thing that we've seen is that they often will sit beside their mothers while they cook. So depending on what polluting fuels they're using, that will affect the mother's health as well as the child's health. So some of these points related to the behavior and environment are also listed in this section. Again, there are class activities linked to this. As you can see, you can do a small physical exercise kind of activity to show how their exposure to health, exposure to pollutants is much higher because of the tendency to breathe fast, especially if they're exercising outside. And very important to drive home the message that especially when there is peak pollution time, it's very important to be cautious of the amount of outdoor activity at all if they're doing. So these kind of activities are there to explain why they're vulnerable. Coming to the health effects of air pollution, again, something that we've talked about today and all the panelists also highlighted is that there are short-term effects and also long-term effects. When it comes to lung growth in children, that can become stunted. There can be reduced lung function, impaired mental and motor development. Again, not a physical health issue, but also a mental health issue. And particularly household and ambient air pollution can cause more than 50% of acute lower respiratory infection in children under 5 years in low and middle income countries, which is a matter of huge concern. Also, some of the other forms of health effects, as you can see, heart health is affected. Traffic pollution also, that they may be exposed to. A lot of studies showing overweight, obesity is also linked to that in school children. So different kinds of childhood cancer also, as you can see in this image. The effects of air pollution then in fact are actually impacting cognitive intellectual ability, can cause psychiatric disorders, stunting, underweight. Here you can see it can cause ear pain, hearing loss, throat, lungs, of course, respiratory infections as well. So these are some of the messages that you can emphasize, the text-based messages from the flip chart that you can use to explain the difference between short-term and long-term consequences. There are also these kind of activities. This is a crossword puzzle. So this is mainly for, you can use it for students to recall some of the key messages that they've learned. So some of the things that they've learned in the previous modules, this activity can be used in the classroom for them to recall some of the key concepts that they learned. Again, these statistics can be very scary for little children, but this is kind of a small letter from researchers for children specifically, which emphasizes that having that knowledge is power in itself and is the first step for them to also become champions when it comes to air, clean air, as you may have seen a lot of children taking and demanding action for clean air. So it's these statistics are not something that they have to learn or mug up in any case. So it's not meant to scare them, but it's to show them the extent of how air pollution can impact their health and the solution for the previous crossword puzzle. Moving on, what are the actions? Some of the actions that they can take largely also to for them to reduce air pollution. Some of the green measures of refuse, reduce, reuse, and then recycle. So not only the 3 R's, but 4 R's. Encouraging friends and family, children can be very great advocates, as we've seen, for demanding action for air pollution. Also to promote the message of renewables, not burn crackers, waste, etc. And these are some of the actions that they can take to reduce air pollution. Very important also, as they've learned, they would have learned in this module through your explanation in the sessions, would be checking the AQI status and feeling empowered to look up that information and understand that. Again, some of the protective, some of the measures that we talked about, for example, when it comes to an N95 masks, all of these kind of activities, planting trees, etc. And of course, exercising by keeping in mind what the air quality levels are for that day and eating healthy and nutritious food. Also, some of these solutions, as I said, children are huge advocates for a greener future. So some of the measures that they can also promote in the society, whether that's greener energy or whether that's cleaner fuels, that was also discussed and will be discussed in the women's modules that will follow. So as I said, role of children as advocates for clean air is very important. As young citizens of India, they need to learn about steps to reduce air pollution and also for them to be able to reduce their exposure to toxic pollutants and spread knowledge as change agents among the people around them. So air pollution, the key message, time to act is now. India has, as you know, some of the most polluted cities on earth, so the time to act is now. Again, as with each training module, this also has a survey for facilitators, which you can use for your own assessment. And if time permits, as I mentioned, you can also use it as a quiz based on learning levels of students for checking if they are able to recall and they've been able to understand some of the key concepts. Again, this also has some myths and facts which you can discuss and debate with them. For instance, if you can ask about if burning incense candles is something common at their household, what they can do to promote these messages at home, what is a good time for exercising and what can be done to ventilate home, so that way they can share these messages at home as well. नाउ जस्ट मूविंग ऑन टू द हिंदी वर्जन। जैसे कि बाकी मॉड्यूल्स में भी आपने अभी देखा है, फ्लिप चार्ट जो है हिंदी में आप देख सकते हैं लेफ्ट में दिया गया है, और साथ में इसके लिए एक प्रशिक्षण गाइड भी दिया गया है जिसका आप उपयोग कर सकते हैं। बच्चों के लिए क्या जो इस पर चर्चा से के क्या उद्देश्य होंगे इसके बारे में आप उनसे चर्चा कर सकते हैं, और इस तरीके के कई और गाइडलाइंस भी दी गई हैं जिनका आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं। वायु की गुणवत्ता क्या है, वायु प्रदूषण क्या है, इसकी कुछ सरल परिभाषाएं दी गई हैं जिनका आप उपयोग कर सकते हैं। किस प्रकार की जो है इंडोर एयर पोल्यूशन है, आउटडोर वायु प्रदूषण है, किस कितने प्रकार है वायु प्रदूषण के, उसके बारे में भी यहाँ पे हमें समझाया जा सकता है। आगे आप देखेंगे जिस तरीके से हमने इंग्लिश वर्जन में भी डिस्कस किया था कि एक यहाँ पे कई गतिविधियां दी गई हैं पूरे मॉड्यूल में जिसका आप उपयोग कर सकते हैं। अगर आपके पास समय है आप कक्षा में भी इन गतिविधियों को कर सकते हैं, या फिर आप बच्चों को घर जाके भी करने के लिए आप एक सुझाव दे सकते हैं। कि जैसे आप देख सकते हैं इसमें मोमबत्ती जला के अगर उस पर हमें कांच का शीशे का अगर हम एक ग्लास रखते हैं तो उससे हम देख पाएंगे कि किस तरीके से उस पे परत जम जाती है। उस प्रकार से हम उनको ये बताना चाहते हैं कि अगर वो सोचें कि इसी तरीके से कितनी तरीके के वायु प्रदूषण के स्रोत हमारे समाज में है और कितना अधिक धुआं हर जगह से निकलता है, तो वो वायु प्रदूषण पे क्या असर करता है, और आगे जैसे कि हम देखेंगे हमारे स्वास्थ्य पर भी उसका असर फिर पड़ता है। साथ ही में जैसे इंग्लिश वर्जन में भी डिस्कस किया गया था किस तरीके से वो एक गीले कपड़े या टिश्यू का इस्तेमाल करके अपने स्कूल में अगर आप कर रहे हैं तो स्कूल के आंगन में कर सकते हैं, या घर जाके अगर बच्चे कर रहे हैं तो घर पे भी कर सकते हैं, कि उस धूल मिट्टी को वो देख पाएंगे जो हमें लगता है कि वायु में नहीं है, पर वायु में क्या क्या कण जमा है वो उस गतिविधि से देख पाएंगे। वायु प्रदूषण क्या है इस बारे में आपने पहले भी हमने देखा है, तो मैं सेक्शन से आगे बढ़ती हूँ। और साथ में जैसे कि गतिविधियां हर गतिविधि दी गई है, इसके साथ हमने एक कि किस तरीके के अलग अलग अगर आप पदार्थ रखेंगे तो वो उनको सूंघ पाते हैं, पर अगर वायु प्रदूषण कणों की बात करते हैं वो शायद उन्हें सूंघ ना पाए पर फिर भी उनका स्वास्थ्य पर प्रभाव पड़ता है। अंदरूनी वायु प्रदूषण की बात हो चुकी है, उसके स्रोत जो आप बच्चों के साथ उन्हें दर्शा सकते हैं यहाँ दिए गए हैं। और बाहरी वायु प्रदूषण, आउटडोर एयर पोल्यूशन के क्या स्रोत हैं ये भी दिए गए हैं, और साथ में दी गई गतिविधियां भी हैं जिस तरीके से आप ये समझ सकते हैं कि बच्चों को ये समझ आ पाएगा कि आसपास उनकी क्या वायु प्रदूषण के स्रोत हैं। जैसे अगर वो एक कागज पे अगर पेट्रोलियम जेली या वैसलीन लगाएं और उससे रस्सी से बांध कर कहीं किसी भी कक्षा के कोने में या घर पे भी अगर लगाएं, उसमें वो देख पाएंगे कि कैसे कण जमा होते हैं 2 दिन के बाद। तो ये कुछ ऐसी गतिविधियां जिससे वो समझ पाएंगे कि हमारे चारों तरफ प्रदूषण, वायु प्रदूषण जो है उसके कण कितने सारे हैं, कितना किस एक्सटेंट तक आप देख सकते हैं कि वायु प्रदूषण हमारे जीवन पे, निजी जीवन पे असर करता है। साथ ही साथ AQI दिया गया है, ये इसका भी एक्सप्लेनेशन हमने पहले कवर कर लिया था। एक गतिविधि है जैसे उसमें वो अपनी डिफरेंट कलर की शीट्स को अगर काट के चिट्स बना सकते हैं, और डिफरेंट बच्चों को ये हर चिट बांट दी जाएगी कक्षा में। फिर वो उन्हें ये करना पड़ेगा कि अगर किसी को जैसे अगर आप देखें हरे रंग की चिट मिली है 0 से 50 तक की, तो उनको अपने पार्टनर को ढूंढना पड़ेगा जिसके पास उस AQI लेवल की हेल्थ एडवाइजरी भी दी गई है और जो सलाह दी है वो भी है। तो इस तरीके से वो इंटरैक्टिव वे में इस गतिविधि से AQI के बारे में सीख सकते हैं। और साथ में कुछ प्रश्न भी हैं ताकि वो रोजमर्रा के जीवन में अपने AQI का उपयोग कर सके, कि किस तरीके से अगर AQI अगर गहरे हरे रंग का है तो क्या आज हम बाहर खेलने जा सकते हैं या नहीं। इस तरीके के कुछ प्रश्न हैं जो यहाँ पे दिए गए हैं ताकि वो अपने निजी जीवन में, रोज के जीवन में इसका उपयोग कर सके। श्वसन प्रणाली, फेफड़े क्या है, इस बारे में इनको समझाया गया है। कुछ ब्रीदिंग एक्सरसाइजेस आप करा सकते हैं ताकि वो समझ पाए कि उनकी जो शरीर है किस तरीके से ब्रीदिंग लंग कैपेसिटी है उनकी। साथ ही साथ यहाँ कुछ आंकड़े दिए गए हैं जिसके बारे में हमने चर्चा करी, कि जिससे हमें दिखता है कि वायु प्रदूषण का बच्चों के स्वास्थ्य पर कितना असर पड़ रहा है आज भारत, न केवल भारत में, पूरे विश्व भर में। ये कुछ ऐसे यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं ऐसे फैक्ट्स दिए गए हैं जिससे हमें पता लगता है कि क्यों ऐसा है कि बच्चे अधिक प्रभावित हो रहे हैं। क्योंकि अभी भी जैसे आपने हमने अभी भी बात करी इस बारे में कि अभी भी वो बड़े हो रहे हैं, उनका जो सांस लेने का तरीका है वो बड़ों से, वयस्कों से अलग है। तो वो किस तरीके से ऐसी जो कौन से कारण है जिनके कारण वो अधिक प्रभावित होते हैं वायु प्रदूषण से, ये दिए गए हैं। साथ में कुछ गतिविधियां भी दी गई हैं। बच्चों पर बच्चों पर क्या असर पड़ता है, उनके स्वास्थ्य पर क्या असर पड़ता है। तो ये जैसे आप देख सकते हैं कि शॉर्ट टर्म लॉन्ग टर्म जिसकी हम बात कर रहे थे, मोटापा हो या वजन कम होना हो, गर्भ से ही हम देखते हैं कि उसी समय से बच्चों के स्वास्थ्य पर असर होने लगता है। और केवल शारीरिक स्वास्थ्य नहीं, मानसिक स्वास्थ्य भी है। और केवल ऐसा नहीं है कि फेफड़े और से संबंधित बीमारियां हैं, बाकी कई अन्य बीमारियां भी वायु प्रदूषण से हो सकती हैं। इसके बारे में यहाँ कुछ बिंदुएं दी गई हैं। यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं एक मैच द कॉलम सेक्शन दिया गया है, ताकि जो भी चीजें उन्होंने पिछले सेक्शन में सीखी हैं उस एक्टिविटी को आप मैच द कॉलम एक्टिविटी में कंडक्ट कर सकते हैं। ये एक पत्र है शोधकर्ताओं से, जो कि ये बताने के लिए है कि जैसे हमने काफी कुछ चीजें उनके लिए नहीं हो सकती हैं, और ताकि वो डरे नहीं, ये समझे कि ये जानकारी उनके लिए जरूरी है, ताकि वो कुछ मेजर ले सके जो उनको जो न केवल उनको वायु प्रदूषण को कम कर सकता है, पर साथ ही साथ उनके जोखिम को भी कम कर सकता है। तो जैसे कि यहाँ पे कुछ इस तरीके के उपाय दिए गए हैं कि वो क्या क्या कर सकते हैं, पटाखे ना बजाएं, इस तरीके की चीजें जो है बच्चों से जुड़ी उनको यहाँ पे दिया गया है। और साथ ही में ऐसे क्या समाधान है जो हम समाज में अगर कर सकते हैं, वो भी यहाँ पे दिए गए हैं। क्योंकि जैसे हमने बात करी थी, स्वच्छ वायु के लिए बच्चों की बहुत बड़ी भूमिका है, और वो समाज में बहुत परिवर्तन ला सकते हैं। आज वो परिवर्तन मांग भी रहे हैं और परिवर्तन करने में भी बहुत आगे हैं। तो इस प्रकार से यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं ट्रेनिंग मैनुअल में या प्रशिक्षण गाइड में एक सर्वेक्षण भी दिया गया है। ये प्रश्न आप छात्रों से भी पूछ सकते हैं, और ये आपकी समझ को जांचने के लिए भी काम आ सकता है। साथ ही में किस तरीके के, जैसे हमने बात की थी, मिथ्स है, उसको आप, उसके तथ्य आप उनके साथ शेयर कर सकते हैं कक्षा के अंदर। यहाँ पे हमारा जो बच्चों के लिए या चिल्ड्रन स्टूडेंट्स के लिए जो मॉड्यूल थे वो समाप्त होते हैं। नेक्स्ट वील मूव ऑन टू दी मैनुअल्स फॉर द air pollution and its impact on women's health. So as you can see on the left is a flip chart, and again a flip chart is always supported with the training manual, and the flip chart follows the same model wherein there is an infographic at the front and some information for you as the trainer to read out during the session at the back in text. So this is an excerpt from the training manual. So we want to emphasize the fact that, of course, the sessions will be conducted with women, but it's important to also know that it's spans across. It's the responsibility of all women, men, and children when it comes to addressing air pollution and taking measures to protect ourselves from its health effects. So as you can see, this is the first sort of infographic, and at the back, there'll be text-based prompts for you. So as you can see, there's a note for you to ask participants what they can see in the picture and what they can describe. And there are some points also given to guide the discussion for you to be able to have an interactive discussion with the participants. So you can ask some of these questions and record their responses. These suggestions are given here to understand their perceptions of a healthy life and air pollution and other environmental health concerns. Moving on, if we talk about this infographic, it illustrates how they are breathing smoke. So it simplifies the concept of air pollution and explains these concepts. Again, there are certain questions that are given for facilitators to ask them. What are the common sort of sources they are seeing of smoke or pollution? Is this a typical scene that they see in their household? Or what are the other sources that they're also seeing at home when it comes to sources of smoke and air pollution? For example, is there a brick kiln nearby? Is there a construction site nearby? Is there burning of wood or straw? Or do they also see vehicular pollution, frequency, etc., and the use of biomass fuels? So moving on to the aspect of what are biomass fuels, again, I think this was discussed briefly, wherein there are different uses. So it could be, there are also different unclean fuels that are used when it comes to heating, or it could be lighting, and all of these things wherein unclean fuels may be used, and we need to advocate for a shift to cleaner fuels and renewable energy. So here you can see that the kind of notes that are provided, which you can use to conduct the discussion, explain what biomass fuels are and what are the uses. And again, these are the everyday uses, and you can ask them questions around what are biomass fuels, do they have an LPG, and have there been any changes as was discussed briefly, that there have been new policies in the last few years, and are they seeing some of those changes in their day-to-day life? Health effects associated with air pollution, as you can see, and also biomass fuel use. As was explained earlier, this is to explain to women the kind of size of the particles that they may be inhaling and how it can manifest for their health. For example, in the short term, it can be respiratory illnesses, cold, pneumonia, asthma, difficulty in breathing, cough, fever, etc. So some of the symptoms are listed here, which can be discussed. And some of the points on what all they can do when, if they experience any of these symptoms, it's important to seek to promote health-seeking behavior for them to access health at a PHC or the nearest health center. Other activities that may cause pollution that you can see inside the home. It could be smoking tobacco, burning rice or straw, excessive use of pesticides is also a risk, exhaust from cars, trucks near the house, etc. And as I said, if there are any factories, there's also some points given here which you can use to discuss. Like, for example, is there a tradition for burning incense during puja or warding off evil spirits? Or are chilies being used to burn to ward off evil, etc.? These can also be indoor air pollution sources. So are these kind of practices prevalent? This can be used to explain to women the lasting health effects of air pollution. As you can see, pollution can affect a child in the womb of the mother. It can affect the pregnant woman's health, at the same time the child in the womb's health as well. And ultimately, if it can lead to a trajectory that you can see on the left, if outcomes are poor, then it can show in low birth weight, and the different exposures that you can see throughout the life, whether it's unclean fuel or unclean fuel at work, at home, can ultimately lead to a lot of diseases and poor health. Whereas if it's healthy aging, it can be a better and healthier life outcome for women. Some of these points are also explained here that you can use to mainly explain the fact that it's air pollution exposure will lead to health effects at every stage of their life, and not only affect the individual's health, but it's going to affect the health of generations to come, and why pregnant women and children particularly are vulnerable to poor air quality, along with the sick and elderly. Moving on, as you can see, this will affect, as we discussed, the health of the unborn child. And these are some of the points that you can use to explain to them that when it comes to children up to the 5 years of age, especially, they are very easily affected by air pollution in the home. So it's important to pay attention to them. Children also, the kind of different symptoms that they can develop have also been discussed here. And what it means for their pregnancy is discussed. For example, exposure to smoke, they're more likely to give birth earlier than expected and have smaller babies. So some of this kind of information is provided. There are also activities in this. For example, this one explains home ventilation. So you can, again, if time permits in the activity-based setting you are in, if you're in a community-based setting, then use of a matchbox and incense, and one box without holes and one box with holes. So the idea is that you light an incense, and when you cover it with that box, you'll be able to see that the box will actually kind of be like a kitchen, in fact, with a window or without a window. So it's just a demonstration for you to use to show if there is proper ventilation, if there is no window. The more the incense burns, there is no way for that smoke to go out, and it stays trapped inside. That affects, as you can see, the children and also the women who are involved in cooking. And if there are holes in that box, or if there is a window in that kitchen, and if there's proper ventilation, that smoke has an outlet and a way of moving out if there are proper chimneys or windows, etc. available. So what can be done to protect women? What are the measures they can take to protect themselves and their family? So these are some of the measures mentioned here. Positioning the chulha near a window, as we discussed previously. Something with a chimney is better. Moving towards LPG is much better. To cleaner fuels will protect their own health as well as that of others. pay specific emphasis to make sure that the child is sitting farther away than you if women are involved in cooking, because it can affect their eyes and cause them to develop a cough or a cold. And again, if there is, they see proximity to vehicles near their house, they need to make sure that they are closing the windows during the time when there is more pollution and vice versa, and they can ensure ventilation at other times. Some of the other measures are eating healthy, and some of these tips around good nutrition, proper nutrition can also be very important. The importance of vitamins and minerals for general overall health and well-being, and specifically to minimize the impact that they face from rising air pollution. What can be done to save fuel and time while cooking? Some of these suggestions you can share. You can also ask, as has been suggested, it can be a participatory discussion. They may be doing following some practices that can be helpful for other women, and at the same time, you can also share some of these practices, which is to make sure that the cooking time can reduce. Covering pots to shorten time, soaking rice before soaking, cleaning the bottom of the pot so it gets pot faster. Some of these points can be used for discussion based on the daily practices that you find on the discussion. What can be used for lighting and heating? Again, it's very important to move towards cleaner fuels, solar energy, etc., rather than traditionally what is being used at home. Because that can impact, that not only worsens air pollution, but also at the same time impacts our health. Another one is, how do you basically reduce exposure and contribution to air pollution? So again, we see women playing a very important role in advocating for change when it comes to their own households, and also larger role they play in society. So the first step, of course, that US trainers will help them to bridge is to know about the problem of air pollution, know about the alternatives that exist for cleaner fuels and cleaner measures, greener measures that can help to reduce air pollution, and a contribution. Different sites at which they can participate. They may be a part of an SHG. Of course, they can advocate at their neighbors, societal level, panchayats, etc. And they need to act. So making simple changes which can protect their health, and also promoting some of these solutions in their community, within their friends, can help to, as discussed, ensure clean air. And knowledge, as we've emphasized during all these modules, is power as the first step. So some of these points on cleaner fuel, ventilation, etc., that have been discussed. Another thing that is provided unique to this module is in the training manual, there is a checklist for households, which ASHAs and ANMs based on their household visits can use to find out more about sources of air pollution that may be present at home, and it can be used as a point of discussion with the women at the house to see what could be possible solutions and how is it that they can address some of these points. Similarly, the same contents are in the Hindi module. जैसे कि अभी हमने English version में देखा, उसी तरीके की जो information है वो इधर दी गई है. फ्लिप चार्ट लेफ्ट में आप देख सकते हैं हिंदी में, और राइट में इसका जो प्रशिक्षण गाइड है. वायु प्रदूषण और आपके जो डिस्कशन आप महिलाओं के साथ अगर करेंगे तो उसका क्या उद्देश्य है वो यहाँ दिया गया है. स्वच्छ हवा के बारे में कुछ प्रश्न दिए गए हैं. पहले जिस तरीके से हमने बात की, फ्लिप चार्ट में एक ग्राफिक है और उसके पीछे कुछ बिंदुएं दी गई हैं जिन पे आप डिस्कशन कर सकते हैं. इन प्रश्नों को पूछ के एक इंटरैक्टिव डिस्कशन कर सकते हैं महिलाओं के साथ कि स्वच्छ हवा का क्या महत्व है और उसका क्या अर्थ है. इस तरीके के प्रश्न यहाँ दिए गए हैं. और यहाँ आप देख सकते हैं कि महिलाओं और बच्चों के जो है वो का असर जो आपने देखा ही होगा इंग्लिश मॉड्यूल में, पर हिंदी में भी हम आगे देखेंगे कि उनका क्या असर पड़ता है और किस तरीके के इसमें जो है प्रतिकूल प्रभाव है वायु प्रदूषण के. जैव ईंधन के ऊपर यहाँ पे आप इन बिंदुओं का इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं उनको जैव ईंधन के बारे में समझाने के लिए, और किस प्रकार से वो स्वास्थ्य पे असर करता है ये भी यहाँ पे समझाया गया है. कितना उनका बायोमास ईंधन का उपयोग है, क्या उनकी समझ है, इसके ऊपर भी कुछ यहाँ प्रश्न दिए हुए हैं. और आगे आप देखेंगे कि इनकी परिभाषाएं भी यहाँ पे दी गई. आगे अगर बढ़े तो जिस तरीके से हमने बात की थी पहले भी कि उन कण का कितना जो साइज है आप इस चित्र से देख सकते हैं, और साथ ही साथ किस तरीके के जो स्वास्थ्य पर असर पड़ रहा है वो भी आप देख सकते हैं. और इस तरीके से आप इन बिंदुओं को का इस्तेमाल करके आप महिलाओं को ये बता सकते हैं कि अगर उनको कोई भी इस तरीके के अगर सिम्टम लगे तो वो PHC या लोकल हेल्थ सेंटर से मदद जरूर लें। बाकी की और क्या अन्य गतिविधियां हैं जो वायु प्रदूषण में पे असर कर रही हैं वो यहाँ पे दी गई हैं। साथ ही साथ किस तरीके से आप देख सकते हैं कि अगर एक ही उसी समय पे महिलाओं के स्वास्थ्य पर असर नहीं पड़ता, पर पूरे जीवन भर आजीवन उस जो स्वास्थ्य प्रतिकूल प्रभाव देखा जा सकता है स्वास्थ्य पर वायु प्रदूषण का। और इस तरीके की कुछ बिंदुएं यहाँ दी गई हैं जिनके माध्यम से आप ये समझा सकते हैं कि उन्हीं के स्वास्थ्य पर नहीं, साथ ही साथ उनके जो बच्चे हैं उन पे क्या असर पड़ता है, गर्भवती महिलाएं और उनके अजन्मे बच्चों पे भी जो असर पड़ता है वो भी आप समझा सकते हैं। और गतिविधि की अगर बात करें तो इस प्रकार की गतिविधियां भी दी गई हैं, जैसे कि अगर वेंटिलेशन की जैसे हमने बात करी है उसको समझाने के लिए, और किस तरीके से वो अपने रसोई को इस तरीके से कर सकती हैं, वेंटिलेशन कर सकते हैं कि ताकि उनपे जो है वायु प्रदूषण का असर कम पड़े। उनके बच्चे जो हो सकता है कि चूल्हे के पास बैठते हैं उनपे भी वायु प्रदूषण का कम असर हो। ऐसी क्या कुछ जो कदम वो उठा सकती हैं अपने परिवार की सुरक्षा करने के लिए, अपनी सुरक्षा करने के लिए, यहाँ पे कुछ बिंदुएं दी गई हैं। जिस तरीके के हमने बात करी कि खाना बनाते समय वो क्या कर सकती हैं, और किस तरीके का जो वो फ्यूल यूज कर रहे हैं LPG है या नहीं, उससे भी वायु प्रदूषण से सुरक्षा की जा सकती है। स्वस्थ रहने के लिए और क्या उपाय हैं, जिस तरीके से हमने पहले भी बात करी कि ओवरऑल हेल्थ जो है पूरे स्वास्थ्य के लिए, महिलाओं के स्वास्थ्य के लिए जरूरी है। और इस तरीके से कुछ यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं कि कदम दिए गए जो वो उठा सकती हैं कि समय खाना बनाते समय वो कैसे उस समय का ज्यादा बेहतर उपयोग कर सकती हैं ताकि वायु प्रदूषण कम हो और वायु की गुणवत्ता खराब ना हो। रोशनी और गर्मी के लिए भी घर में जो है वो किस तरीके से कोई और कदम उठा सकते हैं ताकि वो अनक्लीन फ्यूल्स जो है या जैव ईंधन जो है उसका उपयोग जलाना ना उनको करना पड़े। साथ ही साथ अगर आप देखेंगे कि हमने जिस तरीके से पहले भी डिस्कस किया था कि महिलाओं का एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण रोल है समाज में, कि न केवल वो अपने आप के लिए ये कदम उठा रही हैं, अपने घरों के लिए भी, और साथ ही साथ समुदाय के लिए भी ये कदम उठा रही हैं। और इस तरीके से यहाँ पे कुछ जो है एक यहाँ पे कुछ कदम दिए गए हैं। और आशा बहनें और ANM के लिए हमने यहाँ पे एक चेकलिस्ट दी है कि अगर वो होम विजिट के लिए जाती है, इस तरीके से वो कुछ प्रश्न पूछ सकती हैं समझने के लिए कि घर में वायु प्रदूषण किस चीज से पैदा हो रही है और इसके बारे में क्या सावधानियां बरतनी पड़ती हैं, वो महिलाओं को समझा सकती हैं। और जब भी वो समुदाय से कुछ वायु प्रदूषण की बात करें तो इन प्रश्नों को पूछकर इन सावधानियों के बारे में जागरूकता पैदा कर सकती हैं। So I'll stop at that, and yeah, Dr. Rameshwar, over to you.
Thank you, Survi, for such a lengthy, for such covering all the modules, within this short span of time. We know that, it is not going to, we cannot cover the whole in detail, but still, you have given your best, and we have seen both in English and Hindi, covering both the 4 modules. It's a great thing that you have done. We really appreciate your contribution. The whole thing, the purpose is that at least something that we can do during this International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies. If we can reach out to those vulnerable, group of populations, both outdoor and indoor, and along with our in this program officials across the country, and reaching this message, this right message on this, this international event. This is what our purpose and this goal, our vision is that we have. Now, the thing is that we will be there, and the state program officials and and the other from the departments, we have to come together. Everybody has a role. Our role was, to bring together, on this today that we are having including from the WHO India, who has been supporting hugely, and from the Public Health Foundation of India, they have been also giving all this, as we see today from Surmi, from Dr. Prabhakar. These are that we try to, at least as a nodal officer for the air pollution for the program, wanted to go to this type of this message to the already that we know that this vulnerable that group of population, as we say, women and children, the traffic police personnel, and the these municipality workers. This is what we think. Now, how much that goes to the ground is also another issue, and we really believe that all our this respected this program officials will also do during this time, during this week campaign. And tomorrow we are also having another this webinar, but here that's more of the interministerial, that's more of the interdepartmental, which is very difficult to come together for such issues, air pollution issues. Air pollution is such an issue that health is the ultimate impact that we got from other source, from transport, from other agriculture, the other source, other department, other sectors are giving that causes of this air pollution, and health is ultimately the peoples are ultimately impacted, and many peoples now, as what we have been doing is that even the health professional also says that what is that we are going to do in this air pollution. But because air pollution seems to be in a global scale, it seems to be more of a very bigger issue. So it does not come down easily to the to all those we are working together. So taking leadership from every individuals, I think at least understanding by ourselves and expanding to all those nearby, to all those concerned officers, key officials. This will be our message, our desire for the program. So I wish everybody to be part of this campaign in the next coming this 6 days campaign till the Saturday 11th of September. Like last year, we have seen last year, but this in this what to say this week we would like to really see something is coming on the ground. So we can what to say have a small sessions of what others are also asking, and we will also get some feedbacks from other this who are attending in this present webinar.
And Dr. Rameshwar, if time allows, can I ask the questions that were asked on the chat?
Yes, I think Dr. Purnima is also there, Dr. Survi is also there, Manjiji is also there, Akasa is also there, and at the same time, I think Rashri ma'am is also there, Dr. Bina is also there. We all are here. We all can be together.
Okay, thanks, Survi. A lot of appreciation for the session that you took on the chat. There's a specific question by Dr. Jitendra. How can we measure indoor AQI? And how useful it would be for someone to know what is the air quality at their household level, and how would it be useful for them?
I think we have a lot of technology now. So there are low-cost air quality sensors that are available that can be set up in the household situation as well, and that can help to monitor the indoor air quality. So those are available now in many countries. I think in India too, because CPCB has not been able to set up monitoring stations across the entire country. People are moving to use low-cost sensors for this kind of situation. And for measuring indoor air quality, definitely that is an option.
So Dr. Purnima, how important would it be for an individual to know the indoor air quality if the ambient air quality is known?
See, indoor air quality, actually ambient air quality also contributes to the indoor air quality because we have ventilation, we have doors, windows, there is cross ventilation, there is flow of air, dispersion occurs. So each contributes to the other. So in knowing the indoor air quality is important mostly from the prevention point of view. And even if you don't measure the indoor air quality, it is important to understand what the hazards are. And we've already discussed quite comprehensively in the modules as well, what are the different sources of indoor air pollution. And especially in the rural settings or in urban poorer socioeconomic status households, there are very congested, closed environments. And the hazards are higher in those populations because of poor ventilation and exposure to the cooking fuels. So I think whether you measure it or not, the indoor air quality, I think prevention is important, and preventing the hazards to those vulnerable populations is very important.
But this indoor air quality monitoring and all, it may be, what to say, feasible for some of the institute or the office and all, no? But as a, some, what to say, some of rules, if the ventilation is properly, it's maintained during some during the cooking process, during the cooking hours, if the windows are well, windows are open, and if that area is well ventilated, this will also, at the village level, at the this household level, a little less feasible. But if somebody really wishes, they may take up. But otherwise, this will suffice to some extent. What I feel is that. Yes, Manjuji.
Yes, I think you have already, you and Dr. Poonama have covered about the whole relevance of indoor air quality and about the low cost sensors. But let me also point it out, another level of kind of confusion many times it arises, because here when we are talking about ambient air quality, and I think in the last session, we already saw participants asking about AQI and how is AQI calculated. And I saw Renuka and Dr. Poonama kind of sharing the way AQI is calculated. But while on the ambient side, when we kind of know here CPCB, the measure they kind of share is on AQI, but many of these low cost sensors, even kind of many sensors would kind of measure PM 2.5 directly and not the air quality index. And that's where sometimes the confusion also arises. But yes, PM 2.5 with the kind of health concerns this particular pollutant has, this becomes an indicator of concern, and kind of it's necessary, it becomes a good indicator of air quality in that particular area, and kind of you can use it for whatever purposes you kind of want. So just kind of flagging that, don't sometimes kind of get into whether it's air quality index or PM 2.5 would kind of have different values. And even if in that air quality index, you can kind of focus on the particulate matter 2.5 as to what is that level, and please take that into consideration. But again, not going too much into details, but just flagging the issue. Over from my side.
Yes, if anybody would like to share their experience, I would like to ask from Dr. Veena and Dr. Rasri also, if they can share their from their part. Dr. Veena, are you here?
She is not on the panel. I think you need to move her into panel to hear from her.
Dr. Veena is on the panel.
I see Dr. Rajshri also. Okay.
Okay, any other questions, Renuka?
No, not as of now, but there is, it is more of an observation. So which says that, we have to make the housewives and people who are responsible for cooking or who stay in the house for long about the health impacts of air pollution and health impacts of the choices of fuel that they use. So is there any other measures that our officers can take to increase their awareness apart from these manuals? What kind of communication that they can take, what kind of IC materials they can use to increase awareness on women and other people who are responsible for cooking?
I don't know if I understood your question correctly, Renuka. What other measures beyond this training modules? Is that what they're asking?
Yes.
that ranges from context to context, but I think important thing is to find at that level, at every context, find some local champions. For me, I think in the rural situation, the Anganwadi teachers, the Anganwadi workers are a very credible voice. People listen to them. It's like, so if they can be trained, for example, to deliver these health messages around air pollution and health impacts, I think that would be a good initiative, a good strategy rather. So I think people listen to radios, they watch TV. If there are initiatives that can be done through those kind of measures as well to spread the message beyond these kind of focused training programs, by word of mouth, to have small village level meetings. I think it can differ from situation to situation, but I think these are important measures to kind of create that mass sensitization around the health impacts of air pollution. So I can share one initiative where we have tried to use the hospitals as the nodal point, and put up TVs in the waiting rooms of the hospitals where we are displaying the air quality at that region, and also IEC material around air pollution and health impacts. And we are doing it in the local language as well. So Tamil, if it's in the South Indian, it's in Coimbatore, there's a hospital, or in Bareilly, we have a hospital, we give it in Hindi as well. So there are different strategies that we can use. I think it varies according to context, but having some important champions, local peer leaders who can spread the message, I think is important. And again, children, they are very, very important change agents. If we can sensitize the children, they carry the message home. I think for firecrackers, it has worked very well. No bursting of firecrackers. Since similarly, we can use children and youth as our messengers.
Thank you, Dr. Purnima. There's another question where they want to know if the impact or the effects of air pollution are reversible. And if yes, then how much time would it take for a human body to recuperate from any impacts of air pollution?
I think that's a tough one to answer, because I think, again, it depends on individual vulnerabilities, and how much of exposure has been there in terms of the time period of exposure. So I think in terms of obstructive airway disease, I think it's reversible using something like inhalers and stuff, to removing yourself from the pollution source. But in terms of chronic obstructive lung disease, for example, it becomes more difficult. And again, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, these are all, it's not one factor. Air pollution is one major risk factor, which has been documented now. But there are other also lifestyle, genetics, environmental pollutants are one. So it's an interplay of all these different factors, as well as the host vulnerability. I think so. Reversibility is a difficult one to answer. I guess prevention is key, and then catching it early, I think, is important.
Thanks, Dr. Purnima. There are no more questions. So, and would request participants, if they have any other questions, so kindly type it in the chat or in the Q&A box so that we can answer them. As of now, there are no more questions.
Renuka, they can raise their hand. If you can see, you can bring it and you can.
Yes, Dr. Ameshwar, I have been seeing people who, if someone has raised their hands on the Zoom, but there were no one. Only Dr. Lakshmiya had raised their hand. So if you want, sir, if you want to ask something, yes.
Yeah. It is an excellent seminar, and it is very informative. And my point is, while cooking, Dr. Purnima, and they have already mentioned about that, but it is the correct way of cooking process should be conveyed to all the household members, or especially in charge of the cooking, or mostly in the rural areas, housewife. So that will also prevent the air pollution, as well as even nutrient retention also. So both way it will be useful, and the more focus may be given while correct way of cooking methods. So that some IEC material we have to prepare in a local languages and maybe distributed either through Anganwadi worker or health staff, whatever is feasible. So that focus may be given, and that correct way of cooking procedures, even NAN also would like to help in developing the module and other things. So that point I want to convey. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi. Important points. I think it's also included in the manual. I think Surbhi also had it in one of her slides. Little steps in the cooking practices that can help to reduce the exposure to indoor air pollution. I think, Surbhi, correct me. I think you had
Yes.
Yeah, little steps about having cleaning. You want to mention that again, Surbhi? It is there, Dr. Lakshmi. But I guess I agree with you that spreading that message to the right audiences is very important.
If you share, and we can also look into that. If something is added, we can add. Okay, that is also there. And another second point is maximum number of cooking gases may be provided for at least all BPL families. So that way also we can reduce the indoor pollution. So that is also one point may be recommended in this through this meeting to the government of India.
Yeah, so the program is already there. No? The PMUI program is there. The problems have been as in the uptake and the implementation and continuing going to the second cylinder. And there's also evidence now showing that there are households who have been given the cylinder, but they would rather prefer, cooking on the chula for various reasons. So those kind of, that's why I was sure. Yeah.
Purnima, refilling is a big problem. The rates are very high. If you, once they purchase the cylinder, that will not be enough. But there should be some subsidy or substantial subsidy may be given and encouragement may be given. And also its importance also may be make awareness. That those are the things.
Yeah, I think a monitoring evaluation of the program is being conducted, if I'm not mistaken. So I think these issues will definitely be picked up. They've already been recognized. And I think it's important for the next phase of the program as well. Behavioral change, I think, is one important one as well.
Behavioral change, and also it's important because we have to teach those people how it is, but otherwise we can evaluate what are the reasons why they are going back to chula. Okay, so those things also we have to evaluate and we have to take appropriate actions on that.
We have noted your suggestions, sir. We, in the program we are taking, many ways, many objectives are there. The ways are there that we are taking up, and we will reach to that level also, and we will come back, after a few years or so, and after.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Purnima, there's one more question by Prem Chandra Singh. They want to know what is the relation between climate change and air pollution, and specifically what's the relationship between climate change and ambient air pollution. This has been discussed multiple times again, but it would be really helpful if you can just answer the question again. Sorry.
We cannot hear you.
Dr. Purnima, you're still on mute.
Yeah, actually I unmuted, but host muted. Message anyway, no, so I just wanted to say that increasingly evidence around the world is being documented to show that oftentimes the sources of air pollution and climate change are the same. So for example, one of the most common causes of air pollution is the combustion of fossil fuels. The use of powered coal for burning coal to generate electricity is something that we are still doing in India. 70% of electricity still gets generated from the coal-fired thermal power plants, and it is an important cause of air pollution, ambient air pollution. And the same is also the reason for the climate pollutants. So there is a link between the sources that cause ozone, for example. So climate change pollutants as well as ambient air pollutants are often similar, and this is why we link the two issues as important environmental risks that need to be addressed together. And there is important co-benefits for health as well. So in terms of health risks as well, both ambient air pollutants as well as climate pollutants are causing the same kind of health impacts. So there is a link over there, and sure enough, it is also part of the national program addressing ambient as well as indoor air pollution. So if that answers your question.
Yes, yeah, it is right. It's air pollution has the pollutants which can absorb the heat, that can also cause the climate change impact. So at the same time, this climate change has, impacted in, many ways, as we say, in the, direct ways, indirect ways, So these are, both are these interrelated issues. Yes,
Just to add, I think what Dr. Purnima and Dr. Rameshwar said, and many times in this discussion, whenever you will kind of hear about climate change being linked to air pollution, you'll also hear a word called as short-lived climate pollutants, SLCPs, which is kind of quite a commonly used word in this particular discussion. And I think that's where Dr. Purnima explained that many of these emissions which kind of come out, whether they are from the transport, the burning of the fossil fuels, whether it's the kind of the automotive sector or coal-fired power plants. So they generate these kind of pollutants, and which are also contributors to global warming as well. And one or two notable of them, I think, is the black carbon and the methane. So methane is one of the is a top kind of greenhouse gas. It's a greenhouse gas as well, and also is kind of contributing to air pollution. So these short-lived climate pollutants are the main culprits and kind of which are increasing the air pollution, as well as in terms of the contributors to global warming after after carbon dioxide, which is kind of becomes the main greenhouse gas. Yeah, over from my side.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to put some point that in urban areas, especially, we have a situation like indoor air pollution, where because people get into a very small room, which is very not well ventilated, and the dust is always there in that room. And the second thing, what we have noticed, especially in hilly areas, we use the blankets to cover ourselves, because we need to keep ourselves warm in the night. And the blankets which are commonly found in the markets, which have fur in it, it is creating lots of dust in and around the room. So it is, and especially during the rainy season, when molds and all come inside the room, and the effect of dust in that room has increased the number of cases of upper respiratory tract infections as well as allergy in our areas. So I think we also need to look into these kind of factors also when we consider air pollution, as especially indoor air pollution. Thank you.
We agree, Madanji. In one of the, this Center of Excellence, which deals on allergic health problems, the issues, under the program, they, rightly mentions what you are saying, that, this, the issues of moist dust, which increases the allergic health issues. And these are, we have already documented on this area, and we, are aware of this, and we have also put up in the recent national adaptations for disease due to air pollution. This is also, and some of this is also mentioned in that national adaptation plan. Rasri, ma'am, will you share something about that experience last year that you had, and what are your plans this time? Hello. Anybody from Jitendra Chauhan? We are having all the state nodal officers are here. Last year, we have seen, a great efforts from the states. They have participated. Even the community level health workers. We saw from Madhya Pradesh, very exemplary examples. From Jammu and Kashmir, from Himachal Pradesh also, Dr. Jitendra Chauhan. Can you hear me, Dr. Jitendra Chauhan from Himachal Pradesh? Are you all there, Dr. Madan? Dr. Veena, Dr. Y. Prem Chandra.
We are here. I'm here. I'm listening to you.
Okay, okay. We would like to hear something from the state side, if anybody is there. Dr. Anu Chopra from Punjab. Punjab is a very important state in relations to the air pollutions. Punjab, Dr. Anu Chopra. Dr. Amol from Maharashtra. Are you all there? We could see you from here. Dr. Amol from Maharashtra. Maharashtra has, a huge number of non-attainment cities in India, around 18, I suppose. Dr. Amol. We are eager to hear something at least from the states.
Okay.
I think the states are there, I suppose, but still.
There's a message in the chat box saying Dr. Anu just left for another meeting.
Okay, okay, right. Okay, Akash sir, we'd like to hear from your side, on the event and the way forward and what objectives.
May I say something, Dr. Rameshwar? I'm Dr. Rajeshri from Madhya Pradesh.
Yes, ma'am, we are eagerly waiting because we saw the exemplary example from your state last year. We have shown, we still remember the purple color worn by the community level health workers sitting on the floor, at every May, and participating in that training system, reaching to the people, sharing your report to the ministry. We still remember that.
And your appreciation motivates me to do even better this year, Dr. Rameshwar. And thank you, NCDC team, for all the encouragement. Just like last year, and in a better way also, we are planning the activities this year also, and I hope to get this air pollution module into our this year, and we will again get photographs of purple colored Ashika workers this year too. In addition, we are planning to have traffic workshop for traffic police persons. So I have coordinated with training institute, the police training and research institute at Bhopal. So I have spoken to the ADG who is in charge there, and probably we will have a session specifically for traffic police person down the district to sensitize traffic police person about the health impact of air pollution. And then we are also planning to have convergence with CRI department and municipal workers for municipal workers, urban administration department. But for sure, I have coordinated already with the traffic police research institute. So that is one thing I wanted to share. And as rightly highlighted, climate change and air pollution, they form a destructive loop and aggravate each other. So that was from my side. Thank you so much for organizing this event today.
Thank you very much. Dr. Amol from Maharashtra, is it okay that you can share something from your side?
Hello.
Dr. Amol.
Dr. Ramesh, actually, I am from Ahmedabad, Regional Office Health and Family Welfare, working as a public health specialist over here.
Okay.
Yes, but anyway, it was very nice presentation for us. We also get sensitized about this activity. Thanks for involving us. I'm from.
We also know that Dr. Umang Misra,
Yes,
from Gujarat, is actively involving in the program and contributing to the program.
yes.
We really appreciate your participations and engagement in this event here. Any other speaker from Chhattisgarh? Are you there? Are you there? Anybody who would like to, express their, feedbacks, and anybody would like to express their way forward? Is it? I think, sir, we can wind up. I would give to Akash, sir, for the board of things and for the way forward and for the event, sir.
So are we done with today's program?
Yes, today it's done.
Yeah. So could we move on for the vote of thanks? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
First of all, I like to congratulate the team that worked on today's event, and thanks all who participated today in this event. I was expecting more participation, of course. We have went up to maximum 150 participants, while the last year on the same time we had much more. So I do expect all states to see that at least tomorrow they can ensure all district program officers' participation into the event. And during the week, I expect a lot of activities to be happening in the states. Some of the state program officers suggested what they are planning to do during the week. I also encourage the others to take initiatives on taking this training modules to your women and child population through PRI, through your health workers, and various other methods that might seem suitable. Taking the trainings and modules to police professionals by organizing their trainings, through municipality workers, through your municipal health officer's office, and as much possible participate in raising awareness on air pollution during the week. Air pollution largely seems to increase during the winter season, and we are now in September. So many of the North Indian states will be witnessing air pollution days in larger numbers in coming months. So it's time to act on it, carry out IEC campaigns. We have shared with you, and if not, then please check on to NCDC website or talk to Dr. Rameshwar to get additional material that is available with us. I'm sure you, when check on to NCDC website, you will find videos, audios, and other training contents and IC content that are available on air pollution, which the states are requested to make use of, and they can translate to their local languages and disseminate in as possible widely in the states through audio, video, print, outdoor, and social media campaigns. Carrying out trainings of their medical professionals and health workers during the winter season. Allocations have been made under the PIP budget for IEC head, for training head, and you can make use of that. You will also find on the NCDC website the comprehensive health adaptation plan book, which has been uploaded. You all are working, I know, on your state action plan on climate change, which has a chapter on air pollution. And I request you to look into this book. It is now available on the website, and make amendments to your air pollution chapter and make it updated making use of the information available in the Health Adaptation Plan on Air Pollution, which has been shared by Centers of Excellence and have been uploaded on our NCDC website for you. So once again, I request all states to concentrate on IECs, on trainings, on working on their health adaptation plan on air pollution, and carrying out awareness activities during this week, especially, which we have requested to all state administrations through our joint secretary to participate in large numbers. And beyond health professionals also include police officials, municipality officials, as well as general public, especially the women and children, using the modules which have been shared with you today. Those who have been asking, when can we share with you these modules and the proceedings of today, I would like to tell them that these modules were shared in advance with the state officers, and the districts and the other officers can get the modules from their state program officers. And if for some reasons it's not available, I'm also requesting Dr. Rameshwar and his team to upload them on the NCDC website so they can be downloaded by those interested. The proceedings of today are also being recorded and will also be available on NCDC website for people who are interested in relooking into what was shared today. So with that, I'll bring closer to today's program and would like once again to thank the partners, specifically PHFI, the COE, which helped in preparation of these modules that were shown to you today. You have now specific modules along with flip charts on traffic police personnel, on municipality workers, and on women and children available in the program through the efforts made by PHFI. Also to WHO for being constant support partners and sponsoring it. And also to my state program officers, district program officers, and other professionals who have joined today. You are our team under NPCCH, and it is that we work together and learn from each other. And then, of course, last but not the least, my own team, which has worked in bringing this event together. And with this, I once again request all of you join us tomorrow on 7th at 2 p.m. through the link that will be shared or has been shared with you, and join in very large numbers so that you can hear professionals from other institutions such as Ministry of Environment, Central Pollution Control Board, IIT, and other, including hearing from some states about the work that has been done in India on air pollution, and to update your understanding of air pollution and its impact on health, and how can you work to prevent it or to make adaptation towards it. So with that, thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you all to all of you for this, very important and critical event, and this will ultimately reach to the intended, this beneficiaries to the country. So we, the program really, believes and hopes to the state program officials. Thank you to all of you once again.